You're getting audio now.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
I don't. Yeah, but I don't want this fucking mic. I want to use the live stream mic.
Dude, let's get it working.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me
Get
embed it.
something working.
2 minutes, nobody talk.
Anything
Because it's
starting now.
It's so fucked up how you have to do it. You have to come back over to this third screen, okay? Which is YouTube is now beta, classic, and then in classic is the only place you can find live video. It is like
They make you work, man.
fucking crazy. Okay, so we have audio. Let's hope that when we embed it, it doesn't shut it off because that's when
that
I
bullshit
think
still comes up. Oh my gosh. You need to go back.
it's brand new.
You need to go.
That's
back.
why I didn't take that out yet. I just bought this computer
You
fucking
need to
5
go
days ago.
back. Wow. This will get better with the Macintosh, even though I hate Apple. It's just slow as shit. I mean, I live in the wilderness. It's faster.
There it is. So, and in order to find the embed code, the only way you can find it is to go to the actual video in classic only
Seems like a pain.
and go to share. It's fucking
Mhm.
crazy. Why is it so slow? What's happening? Why is the speed so slow?
You've got it.
It's because you're streaming and everything, so it's prioritizing the stream.
If you can shut down, well, you've got everything shut down that you don't need up
Yeah.
there, right? Yeah, so you're minimal already.
That's what I did in the beginning. This didn't help us speed us up. And we're not even charging. Like what the I need to be on a plug. That's
There's this.
yeah. That's it. So then you gotta go here and open the video. Damn it.
Charging.
That's why we might have a voltage issue. Voltage on PC slows everything down. Did you know that?
No.
If you start draining the battery, things get all stuck. When you plug it in, they all start running.
Maybe.
So you got to go here to find the embed code. Do you see how long it was to get that embed code? Here
Yeah,
to
that's
there to
ridiculous.
there. Then it has to be on, and then I can get it. And then so we
And
should be
this
over there
should-
shortly.
This should just like pop up.
Watch how quick it
There.
happens.
Then it has to be
Yes!
on.
But it's got to work in clean. And then so we should be over there shortly.
This should just like pop up.
Halo.
So look how long it's taking. I can't even find the code yet. It doesn't. See how it's stuck? Okay, I have time. I have 29 minutes.
We can make this damn thing work.
Oh, what the fuck is that?
Roll.
No, that's the original. This is the original live stream right here.
How do I? Oh man! Don't stand in front of me. I will punch you. What the fuck? There we are.
Hello.
It's not embedded. I'm still trying to get the embed code.
Hold on. You ended the stream and it sees this as the live stream.
That was the earlier ended stream.
Okay.
It's closed.
All right.
All those idiots are going to be sitting there. We'll miss the live stream. Fuck them. No, it's the only through Kling. I'm going to replace it so they'll all be like, "Well, there's a new one." Did I copy that? I'm not following what I'm doing. Did you see me copy the embed code?
I did not.
And then we come over here and it's real quick. And then I come down here. And then I add it to my video. And then I just replace this. And it should be, let's see how long it takes. Once I do it. Okay. And let's go next.
I should kill this. That's your embed code most likely up there. I should kill that. Right?
Just hit refresh. That's a new one. Play it. Play ya.
Yeah.
But now what are we on? Which mic? We're plugged into all the fucking mics.
I bet you're on this
Well, I'm plug one and see.
I'm not unplugging shit.
That's it.
one.
It's the big one.
Yeah, it's going through the big one.
It's the big one.
How big is it? They paid for this.
Mighty damn big.
They're happy. Everybody's happy. So now we just never turn this off all fucking weekend, so we can't unplug that.
You have somebody run security here at night. We're gonna sleep in
No,
there.
they locked the door. All right, good. I'm gonna get my
They can lock
talk.
Huh?
They can lock it. I'm gonna get some tape.
So the stinker's gonna be here, and we gotta tape this up. So let's make this all look nice.
You got tape?
Yeah, and everything. I need all this visual and let me do this.
Where's tape? This is good, like.
Yeah, we don't want to show it to the people. It doesn't have to. We can turn this off once. I mean, can I shut this? You think? No. I'll just
I
mute
leave it
this.
up.
And we need this in a position where people switching out their equipment doesn't fuck with shit. So let's tape it to let's get it up here. And that way, if you're moving out projectors, no one fucks with the live stream.
You don't need any of this stuff, right?
Permanent. No, that's just in case for the
I wanna
people
put
that
this
may
off to the
need it.
side.
Yeah.
You need to set that up where we can walk around a little bit from the table, maybe. Bring it back about middle of the aisle here. What do you think?
I'm going to see what this looks like. No, this is too far away. We need it at least this close.
Okay, so we need to be standing up in front of the screen then.
No,
Speakers. Where do you want us?
you have to be within 2 feet of the projector. You put your laptop here and you stay right here.
Oh, okay.
And you say, and there's my screen.
Got it.
But now you check. So can you help with the camera right now?
What do you want to do?
Give us a little bend up.
Yeah, I can do anything you want. Stand up.
More. Like, okay. Oh, okay. Hold on. Let's look at that. Go down. Back down. Let's wait 7 seconds.
Yeah, I thought you was going way. You said a little, and you went way up. You wanked it.
We got it.
Okay.
With audio.
Okay. And so I was just gonna say, well, it's just
And they're all
live streaming
watching
my
now.
phone.
Everyone is now juicing their pants.
Which way?
They just heard that.
I didn't choose my pants.
Yeah.
Hey, what I smell then?
Oh.
So we'll just put this
Yeah, yeah.
Once you smell it.
Look at this.
Okay, let's check.
Hey, I love that shirt. All right, is this the way you want the camera?
It's looking pretty good.
All right, good. Okay.
Hey, let's get some
$1
wires
million.
on the cross pieces here, but I'm trying to get the power set up.
Hey, can I have someone?
Hello.
Hello. I got a rocket from my blue and then off I go.
Oh, that's yours. Here I am. I'm giving a talk. The screen is not in the way.
We can unplug that temporarily.
Dude, you're blinding yourself though.
No, we're moving it away from the blind people.
Oh my God.
No, you stand right here.
All right.
This is where you talk.
All right.
You never stand here.
All right.
See, look.
Hey,
Okay, stay in one spot makes it harder to sing and dance. With him, he's a jiu-jitsu dancer, obviously.
Oh yeah, jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu dancer, you can do it all right there in one spot.
Let's
This yellow shirt don't look too good in here.
Can I fuck up your
They're so
laptop?
yellow
What's your
back
name, dude? The guy who just saved our life.
Yeah.
I'm Dave.
This is yours, Dave?
Yeah.
nice.
Sure, I knew it.
How does that look on the screen? See the live stream?
I see the live stream. It looks fair.
Hey, that shows up, don't it?
All right.
How's that look, Rex? Better?
Better. Yeah, I can see you better now. Now everything is. Yeah, there you go.
How does it look on live?
It looks okay.
Let me make it.
Kinda
It's not
like
even
them.
adjusted. There's a fucking wire in front of it.
Shit. Cursing.
Who does
They
that?
pay for it.
They paid for it. Everybody knows down.
I see Santa.
Mad scientist Santa.
Yes.
We got bubble wrap under here. I think I need a better.
All right. Now I'm officially scared. We're building some antimatter.
Okay, can everyone move away from there? Get out of here.
I got a speaker for the other room that I brought with my own personal stuff. Like they can just plug in for sound. You got it covered in here?
We have the thing I want to
No,
use.
not for the mouse. I mean, not for their speaking. For the
Where's the
media
stereo
off
system?
their thing.
Where's the stereo system? I don't know what the question is.
That is there already. I'm talking about the sound for whatever display they're having. He needs sound for his computer. I have a speaker.
All right,
you can
I'll
just
be
plug
back.
in.
What time am I speaking?
You guys need that. That's what I'm just
Nobody
checking.
asked for it up here.
Okay.
So tomorrow we might need wherever he is if he's up here.
All right. So yeah, I got a portable speaker that you could just plug in and it'll work for him. I got it set up in the office.
Do you need more help?
No, I need to figure out. I just need to figure out how to we're filming it.
Well,
Is it charging?
So I'm setting it up. No one bother me. I'm setting up the picture.
Is it charging?
No one bother me. I'm setting up the
that's
picture.
ghetto. Yeah.
It's
You
it's
need
not
a-
charging.
You need a
not charging. Here, wiggle this.
Over here, too.
Wiggle the power here.
Oh, you guys-
Rex, when you leave on the left, there's those green lights. Yeah. Strip. Hit the top or middle one.
What I'm gonna do is tape the wire right here.
Let me get some light. I can't see what the fuck's going on, and I need to. Yeah, beauty.
Want to tape the wire right here?
Yeah,
So
do
you
it.
get this.
Tape it.
But this, you gotta make sure that that's charging. You said it's not charging. It should be charging.
Yeah, it should be. Oh, it was pushed out.
Charging out. Got a green light over here by the LED.
That's all. Okay, maybe it doesn't go boop 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 boop.
I don't know. There's a green light right here where the
It
LED
doesn't go
goes in.
boop 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 boop. It just shows a plug.
Yeah,
Yeah, you get the plug
you're
showed. You should be charging.
So that's good. The speakers aren't going to really know to where to fucking stand. So it has to be adjusted so it doesn't. Then they're not standing in front of the screen.
Well, that's pretty obvious. You don't stand in front of the screen.
Why did they
Give
make
you
this
that.
push this back?
Damn tripod leg there.
It's just in the wrong angle.
It's just a damn tripod.
That's not what that for people. Stand right there, Greg. Stand here and don't move.
What's the date?
I need to turn all this. It's like getting worse. Should I be moving this way? I don't get it. Why the fuck is it opposite? Come up here and stand in front of that.
My life is a model. I'm a model.
Hiya. I think we're nailing it. Are we getting better? You're the PSAT?
Yeah. You're just gonna need your presenter to stand where he is right now, or one step over
Which way?
this way.
Stay out of the way of the camera. That
Uh,
way you can get your screen because we're focusing in on the screen.
Not the speaker.
Well, if you can be in there, if you just move right here. So look, and you'll be able to see your picture. I'll leave this for the speaker so you can see what you're doing. So if you walk towards the screen, you're going to block your info. Not only that,
Yeah.
you're gonna look, darken it out. So you have to be away from this light, or no one can see it.
All right, so long as you touch.
So as soon as your arm is in there, you're
Yeah, I see.
yeah.
Arms in there now, not now.
Yeah.
So you don't want to stand any farther over than this.
Probably be best to frame it just
So,
this way. a little.
If we put this right here and say, don't go
Yeah.
past this edge.
You
This
don't even
edge,
have to look.
this edge right here, that's it.
So what should we do here? Do we have a regular duct tape? We can make a line. Don't pass.
Yeah, don't pass this line. Maybe put it
Yep.
forward right where my foot is. Put a line of duct tape right there.
So it'd be right
Just
here.
put a line right past my foot.
Here.
Well, that's gonna broaden out.
What?
All right, now I'm standing on that. I'm getting in light a little bit, but it's not on the screen.
No, it's perfect. Dude. That's amazing.
Okay.
Now, can we go to a
You could
clip?
actually probably come this way a little more.
What do we say? I don't know what you mean. You're the
so-
guy.
Actually, if you walk back here, that's not too bad. Is
That
Do you need
way,
this stuff?
No, we were just using it for picture
So
color.
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
way
that's
it like
fine.
really
If you need to use it,
captures.
you can use it.
No, we set I turn the lights out. We're just checking it has good saturation. So this should be adequate for live streamers and they can't complain.
the only thing
I
I
gotta
gotta
change.
do is plug my,
There you go. Now it's kind of centered frame wise between the two.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Everything's pretty secure. Nothing's gonna kick free. You good?
all I gotta do is plug in right here.
I need to eat, man. Want permission to go? Will you watch this room?
I want you.
Boom.
Yeah, I need to get more shims and better shit than bubble wrap. I'll bring that down. But I'll be adjusting the projector for all the speakers because I don't want anyone to fuck shit up. So I'll do it.
Good,
You can plug in, but I'll make it clear and less angle and all that shit.
good. You don't mess with anything. Just plug in. We can show you can bail me out, hopefully.
Do we want to plug into a laptop for the shit of it?
Yeah, probably.
Just use the live stream. I can't. That's all HDMI'd up. I need your laptop. Okay, I really need to eat.
You're up next, aren't you?
Huh?
You're the next speaker, right?
First one.
First one. Which is next.
actually, we can create a shim with this.
A what?
A shim for the projector. At least for the time being.
What is that sound source I'm hearing? Oh, it's just repeat what he said. It's repeating it later. Okay.
7 seconds.
That's throwing me off.
Want to take this?
Yeah, we can do that. Actually.
I think this should be about right. Try it out.
That's might be
Way
too
too
much.
high. Well, I think the foot's down still. But yeah.
Well, I'm short and someone always sits in front of.
Probably sit here. Well, you want to be with somebody. I don't know where you was.
Okay, that's fine. Because otherwise people are gonna be just completely coming
That's pretty unstable. You guys good?
Yeah, I mean, it should hold. I mean, we can tape it down
tape
too.
that down.
It's fine.
Put tape over here.
I think if you squeezed it down a little bit, it would not be a bad thing. Want to tape it?
Yeah, this way it really doesn't go anywhere. in notes. Sounds well.
Stupid. Wait, so I hope I don't have any internet porn.
Up in notes. Sounds well.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I like your hat. Did you make the hat?
No, I didn't make it. A friend made it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thank
Hey, how are you?
you. Greg Allison.
Hey, James Polson.
James Polson.
Craig Polson. James Polson.
Polly.
And Carl.
Greg Allison.
Greg Allison. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I keep moving. That's curious. He's an uncle, right? Oh, are you suggesting he watch this stuff? He might like later.
That sure looks like some.
I was helping him out with it, yeah. Were you watching?
No, but I was curious. Since we're here, the VIP still buy it.
I don't know. Good question. I don't know.
I'd like to get it on.
Yeah. I have no idea. Yeah,
Well,
but
this is the man who can answer.
the video.
He's gonna be
he
talking.
did say the videos would be available. So,
Yeah, but it sounds like it's available.
so bad.
But
Yeah.
why take a chance?
There you go. Part of the package.
That's a better deal.
Should we bring that up?
Maybe.
You know?
Okay, so I'm not worried about it.
Is it too late to purchase live stream?
No.
Or you have, no. What do you pay? Still buy?
You can still buy it.
24 bucks.
It's not like big
You have to do online?
Yeah, you can go to one of his just standard daily videos on Oppenheimer right channel. Underneath, there's a live stream.
Some of the stuff.
That means you can purchase it. It'll be available on some server somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that guy is just awful, and so we can test it. And it works.
That's the whole conference, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's they only did one live stream piece.
Okay.
Rex is in the other room,
No live feed?
and I don't think a live
Yeah.
stream, but they're going to be doing stuff.
No, it doesn't matter. Cool. Oh, you have one.
Hey, Greg, do you think he wants this computer up here still?
It was what?
Do you think he still wants this up here?
I doubt it. I don't know. When he comes back in, he'll be back in a few minutes. David, you did dress up.
Presentable enough, I guess.
That's my notes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, in my. So right here.
So this is the speaking mic, or what are we using for mic? You got on?
Yeah,
This is the speaking.
yeah,
mic.
just don't touch any of it because it's all had a hell of a time with the audio.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's working.
Is there anything off, are we?
No, no, we're
No,
gonna.
no, he's giving
Oh,
it.
wait. So how are you supposed to speak in this thing? You gotta stand here the whole time and like do your
You gotta
thing.
Yeah,
stand,
you don't go past this gray line and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Your live stream's right here.
stand right about here.
So I got my
Set your
computer here.
laptop- You'll set your laptop up right here, plug it into
Yeah, I'm
that,
plugging HDMI.
and then stand right about here.
And that's the audio for the
Yep.
whole stream. So
Yep.
there's nothing coming off the face.
Yep. That's it.
Does anybody have a red laser pointer by chance? Laser pointer?
I wasn't able to turn mine red.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, we may have to use it if we can't get anything else.
A what?
Nobody has anything else on the
You want, I'll give you the blue one if that's like your.
Yeah, I would love to try
Yeah,
it.
I had one, but I don't.
Dave, I may have one.
Red one?
Yeah.
Or any color would be great, just so it's visible.
Just not blue.
Let me go. Which? Yeah. You have to return it. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, that's the plan.
Here,
Yeah, I don't keep stuff like that.
I'll just put this in your hand so if anything happens, you can use it if it just gets me back.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure.
So I'll forget.
Certainly. 5 minutes of show time.
I'm still waiting to get people in, I'm wanting everybody to make sure there's no weapons.
Sitting on a weapon.
What do you care?
Chair. Improvise.
Anything can be used.
Huh?
Anything can be used.
That's right. Improvise.
Adapt and overcome.
If you stand there just to get shot, you're going to get shot. You might as well fight. You got nothing else to do. Charge. What I learned in the military, if you get ambushed, you don't just stand there and get shot. You charge them. That's the best.
best protesters last week charged on the police and then had them surrender, take off their helmets and put their shields down.
Charge the police and have them do that. Really?
Yeah, they got overwhelmed. They got overrun. So the police were like, all right, we'll put everything down. Again, it took the power of the citizens to all run at the police at the same time, and they didn't know what to do. They thought they could keep people backing off, but they went over the line. They were beating some more people.
What was the protest for?
They're cutting off the food into the high protest areas. So you know where they're getting the pockets of heavy protest across France. They're targeting those areas and stopping some of the food shipments in the city,
Oh,
which is angering the people. But
interesting.
then you got some 80-year-old woman being beaten up on the ground by 6 very strong men with clubs stepping on her face and stuff. People got really pissed off. And they went in at the police. The police thought they could just get back. And they're like, thousands of people came running over the police because they were beating that woman too much. They went over the line.
This is the power over the powers of
The numbers of the people, once they understand that they have the power of the people number, then they can do anything.
See, that's why they tried to get guys and so on to get the numbers down. They're afraid of us.
That's what I saw happen in France when they overran the police last week.
Right now, we have a window of time where we still have the upper hand. We just don't know it yet.
That's where the power comes in.
We have the power right now. We just don't know. Most people don't understand the problem we're facing because they're empathizing on this.
That footage, like the French police did not want that footage out. And also the EU insignia.
Of course not.
They will have all of the EU insignia of police in there, which means that they're not French police controlling the French citizens of the protests. They have it's the integrated EU force that's going. Those soldiers are coming from different countries to now control the French citizens, right? Not even their own police anymore because they won't go far enough on beating people.
Well, let's see how far the UN gets from it, the EU gets with all that.
I'm starting to get angry now. I'm starting to really feel bad.
People are about to rise up.
These guys are all wearing black face masks. They all got EU insignia.
So you see why in the last campaign it could have been a political ploy to have a Plan B candidate who would appeal to the unhappy masses to make them think that they would get more.
Yes.
When in fact, it's making switch.
Completely, yes. Yes.
You gotta remember, Trump was buddies with Clinton before the campaign.
I thought you were talking about Macron side and a few other people who used to be the yellow vest protest leaders are now running for politics as France, right? So they're trying to kowtow that exact same thing there. So what used to be the leaders of the yellow vest, they can enter trying to run politics.
How many
Thanks
of
for
those
coming.
are really good guys?
We're going to give this line a few seconds. My nemesis, the paid live stream, has been holding us up for 14 days or so. We figured it out 8 minutes ago. Applause. Come on.
Perfect timing.
And that just means we don't have to refund all. Many angry people had already called the live stream company saying we were robbing them.
Oh, God.
And luckily Rex did a live stream this morning explaining the conference starts in 1 minute. So I hope I don't have any internet porn up here. It's been a while. I've been busy. So I'm going to make sure not to plug in. Okay, that's the right place.
What's with the shirt? What's the problem in getting a live stream authorized? Was it just marketing or what was the problem? It's just that it was dressed up.
No, I bought a new computer to run it on, new microphones, PCs. None of this crap interacts.
Okay.
It's almost like, yeah, it's on purpose. So rather than piss off anyone that's waiting to not stab me, I'd be happy to answer any questions while I'm setting up the first talk. I don't want to introduce the conference until all those people are in here. And then hopefully it'll move smoothly after that. So if you have any questions about why I'm here, why I don't need I don't need to make any money off of this conference, and I run myself ragged like a maniac to make this happen, feel free to ask a question.
Why do you do it?
Why do you do that? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
He's a maniac.
I was compelled, for some reason, I was compelled after I was abused by the system, abused by my family, and abused by the world. And I was like, I was trying to accept it, thinking like, this is real, this is normal. Everyone has a shitty life. Everyone is miserable. Everyone hates their job. And I was just accepting that by my late 30s. I was also confused by the fact that I spent 8 of the most intense years at university learning about things I cared about, and there was no job in the world to actually do that unless I was a professor. But if you're a professor, you can't do what you actually want to study. You have to do what they fund you for. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You need to literally be a millionaire to study what you want to study and then to implement it to help humanity. That's it. Because once you get sucked up by industry because you're smart, they make you make genetically modified foods. And they only tell you this much because you think you're feeding the world. And this guy's making a part that kills people in Libya, and he doesn't even know it. He's like, no, I work for the military. I'm keeping America strong. And he's murdering babies. So that's when I decided, like, the information you get from the mainstream is not information. It's like to coddle you. It's to lead you to believe that you're important, that your job matters. But it doesn't. It only matters when you get that paycheck. You know, very few people's jobs matter. Surgeons, people in the emergency room, they're saving lives. But most of their job doesn't matter. They have to do shit they don't want to do. They want to save lives all day. But that's not all a surgeon does. He has to stay up for 80 hours a week and feed his wife or whatever the consequences of this lifestyle. Drink heavily. You know, get a mistress. It's disgusting. So when I finally was able to get out of the criminal justice system, my life had crumbled away and I had become alcoholic and introverted and blamed everything on everybody else. And when I finally for some reason, this judge gave me an opportunity to get into this drug court where I got sober for the first time in my life. And I had some clarity. And I couldn't get sober, so I continued to listen to what they told me to do. They said, don't ever do anything you did before. So I literally got a newspaper and pointed in the, want ads and picked a job. Job I had never had before, and I went in and I lied my ass off, and I got the job. And then in a few weeks, I was the best at it, and I got the next higher job, and I kept working my way up and back into life, I call it. I was working my way back into life, learning new skills, not doing the same stuff I was doing before. And I was making like minimum wage with a graduate degree. It felt good because I was learning and earning. And the first time I felt I had value because what I was doing was unique for the first time, and I was trying and I was doing it. And that I got sick of that in a minute because I have a very short attention span. And so I started to want to run these companies that I initially started to work for. right? I could do that better than you. And in fact, in a few years, I was good enough at what I was doing in activism to run the activist groups. And then they started calling me to save Philadelphia schools or Planned Parenthood or the American Civil Liberties Union. Any groups that has millions of members wanted me to be their endorser because I can look you in the eye and you'll hand me your credit card in 5 minutes. Yeah, and it's not because I'm nice or pretty or put this jacket on. It's because I know the scam, which is the scam of life. I know that if I never met this man and I look him in the eye and shake his hand, he'll respect me right now. And if I only use down tones, he'll believe everything I say is important. But if I go up, he'll shake my hand, give me $1 to escape. So there's a way to scam the world, and there's also a way to be a human. And unfortunately, almost no one in this room that's younger even understands what that is, what it is to be human. And the reason is because of all these devices that we've just been struggling with. It's taken me 2 weeks to figure out how to show lazy people how to watch me. And all they had to do was spend a couple more dollars and, hitch a ride with me, and they could have been here. So I think that the key to moving forward, to healing ourselves as humans, the why you're all here, is to actually be human and to meet people here at this conference and to finally talk with people that have similar ideas that can relate to you. And so you don't feel so, sometimes if I'm in a city or in the wrong place, I feel like I'm surrounded by nobody I can talk to. And if I have to talk to them, it's like, do you know where the bathroom is? Is there a hotel near here? I can't say, could you see the news? Because they'll be like, global warming. Burning up, yeah. I subscribe to that channel or whatever. So there's really very few good conversations that are happening. So then I got sick of actually doing the job I liked and getting paid for it. So I said, why don't I just become a freelance activist? And an opportunity in 2012 arose when I got a blind email from somebody who says, do you want to help organize the March Against Monsanto? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And someone in Philly had already decided they were going to do it. And so I challenged him. I said, no, how are you going to do it? Who are you? And he happened to be like the biggest nonprofit guy in town. So I said, well, let's meet and we'll decide who's going to do it, or we'll do it together. So as soon as I met him, I fired him. I bet him. I said, I bet you I can bring everyone in Philly to my event and make sure no one comes to yours. And he basically pooped his pants and gave it to me. And then when thousands of people descended on Philly, he was there starstruck, like, how did you do that? And I did it by talking to people. So my first life experience, sober human, I decided to stand in one of the busiest places in Philly, which is Rittenhouse Square, and ask a simple question. Do you know what a genetically modified organism is? And that was my only question. And the first year I did it, 3 out of 1 million people knew what I said. And every person that didn't know, which was everyone, I gave a flyer. And I went back there day after day after day, tens of thousands of flyers in the same space. And then by the second year, 10% of the people that walked by me when I asked, 1 out of 10 said, oh yeah, it's a genetically modified, or they knew some of it. And then I continued to a tipping point where when we organized a march, thousands of people that I had already spoken to, see, it was a trick. I subliminally tricked Philly to come to this event a year prior to it happening by standing in the same spot and having them walk by me. And there was just enough people, 1% of Philly heard me saying it, or were near me when I said GMO or Monsanto, that they actually showed up to that march. And then the March Against Monsanto was successful worldwide. I don't know if you don't know that. If you don't know that, it's because the mainstream media outlets that should have reported on it didn't. They were not allowed because the multinational corporations that own those venues, Monsanto is top notch. And they have the ability to say, do not, you only tell people GMOs feed the world. Click. And that's what's in the paper. And it's amazing because you get all the CEOs at Bayer Monsanto here after they're paying out a settlement to a guy who got cancer from their product. And they'll be like, they're liars. And this is a corporation of people who have poisoned humanity, have been eavesdropped on in their meetings saying that I would rather save $1 than save your life. because that's my model, the business model. The business model is not to care about you. At some point, it begins caring. At the local level, I find politicians care. And then quickly, within a year or 3, they get bought out. And so people that you might have liked now become bought. And then they become fake. And the same person you knew 3 years ago is now beholden to someone, can't even interact with you naturally. And that's where we are today. And the purpose of this conference is, collectively, I believe in lots of things. I believe in cycles, first and foremost. My background goes all the way back to cycles. I didn't know anything about cycles until I got to college and met this professor who had, he had a hypothesis, the punctuated aggradational hypothesis. And it was cutting edge, so I listened to him. But more importantly, when he brought me out to see rocks, sedimentary rocks for the first time, I understood what he was saying because I looked at a bunch of rocks that were laid down episodically and periodically. Now, at the same time I'm in college, I'm learning about a thing called gradualism or uniformitarianism, which is what we live by as humans. And it states that the only thing that you can know, sir, has to have already happened, and we already know about it. So there's nothing that can happen that's not possible. So according to humans, everything that we know has already happened, and we already know about it. And that's what you're taught as a scientist, which is not science at all. It's the exact opposite of it. And as a geologist, it's your introduction to geology. Gradualism, uniformitarianism, and there is no catastrophism. None. And I bet you, how many people in this room know what catastrophism is? Yeah. And so did Immanuel Velikovsky right back in the 40s. And once he talked about it, they shut him down. Right? Yep. They did. And they shut him down because the multinational corporations that did not publish the information on glyphosate, millions of people getting sick, autism, inflammatory disease, all increasing in 1992, are owned by the same people that shut down Velikovsky. And it goes all the way back, and I'm going to tell you, it goes back to religion. It goes back to the Vatican. The AAAS is the Association of Accredited Assholes. There is not a single scientist with core value that is part of that. They had the audacity after we found Göbekli Tepe to tell you people, the sheep, that it was a skull cult, and then they were carving shit in it. Are you kidding me? Does anyone not know what Göbekli Tepe is? It is a stone megalithic area in Turkey on this hill that basically consists of thousands of archaeoastronomical circles that have been dated to 12,000 years ago. When we were hunter-gatherers, when 30 million Clovis people that populated North America, that built the mounds that no one knows about, disappeared in an instant. And you are still taught in school. This is known. Go ask any scientist. Even my friend Dennis Stanford, who is part of the scam, he now is head of the Smithsonian. He is doing science by talking about the fact that North Americans were here 17,000 years ago, because he actually has all of the fossils. Every fossil found, they give to the Smithsonian and Dennis Stanford. He's got them all. He's like, you want to look at them? It's crazy. So it's very clear that we have all been around for tens of thousands of years. We've known about celestial mechanics, advanced concepts of the universe and science forever. Not only that, where does astrology come from? It comes from the rotation of the heavens around us that ancient man witnessed. Now, here's the problem. When I say ancient man, you all think of a hunter-gatherer, don't you? Because it's been indoctrinated into you. When ancient man could probably float, and he didn't have language because he was telepathic, and he's building pyramids, and he's building mound structures that are shaped like serpents that mimic the universe. I guarantee he was not picking berries and trying to beat a rabbit on the head, coming up with those concepts. It's just ludicrous. So the information in plain sight is being held from you. Groups of people know about it. The mainstream dialogue is being lied to directly to your face so that you're compliant, that you pay taxes, that you continue to strive for that 401k so that you slave your ass off until you almost die so you can never figure it out. And that's the purpose. And there are very few people that figure it out are conspiracy theorists, nuts and assholes and blah, blah, blah. And then when someone starts to pick up on it, when smart scientists start to step over, when the Thunderbolts project begins, when electric universe theory becomes well known amongst small percentages, the tipping point, they then create up a new ruse and they flat earth us so that all the grand solar minimum people now are flat earthers. How many people believe in grand solar minimum, believe in flat earth? How many people in this room believe in flat earth? Wow. I didn't expect that.
Making progress.
Hey, if you didn't bring your hand up, we love you.
It's like you were gold and eyes. Oh, that happened.
So I'm going to quick get started here because I think everybody's in.
If you don't mind to scoot in, if you can scoot yourselves in, then our guests that are coming can find a way to sit down easily.
Excuse me, are we allowed to just click photos?
Ready to talk.
There it
Yeah, feel free to take pictures. Please don't try to film this and sell it. Because we've already done that. Yeah.
We can take pictures, Simon?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you can do pictures. I want to actually record my talk. Is there any other questions before we get started? Yeah, we're going to get there.
You've got the Oppenheimer Ranch.
Yeah, so I met my partner, Leah, who's absolutely in the room.
Hi.
She's right
Hi,
there.
Leah.
Your hands where I can see them. So this is going to be a quick presentation, but first let me welcome you to LeakCon 2019. Give yourselves a big round of applause. You made it. Now, my talk is going to be on cosmic catastrophe, comets to cosmic rays, because you've been lied to. Not only that, is that many of the esoteric researchers that are here that I invited, like one of my heroes, Laird Scranton, Robert Felix, which I guess is here today. I haven't met him. He's here. Good. Now, these are people that have been diligently working on information that is suppressed. It's hard to get funding at university to go fly to West Africa or East Africa to talk to the Dogon. I'm pretty sure they don't have many hotels in that region. But we'll hear what Laird has to say. So there's lots of new information in the last 10 years coming out. There are a lot of scientists like myself. I actually believed in global warming about 11 years ago. I was like, I'll give in to it. And that's because for 12 years, I was struggling with my sanity and barely interacting with media or multimedia. And in that time, all of humanity around me was all global warming, you know, and it was still warm in the summer and sometimes in the winter it got warm. So it's believable. And the reason that you can believe in whatever the media tells you is because when it comes to climate cycles, climate change, very tiny changes have very big effects on humanity. And if we had a VEI-8 volcanic eruption while I was speaking right now, 90% of the people in this room would be dead in a week. And that's not a fear, it's a fact. Because what would happen is the global temperature would drop 10 degrees, the sun would never rise for 8 years, all crops would wither. And prior to that, in just 48 hours, there would be no more food or products in the store. The looting would have begun. And unless you're prepped and hiding, you're now a target where people are going to come and take your stuff. And that's just one of many options that can happen at any time. And humanity, up till this point, we've been living in a quiet period. a productive and abundant period. It's called the Holocene Warm. And for those who don't know what that is, it's a period of time when we warmed up. So I'm going to give you some context. And I can do that right here. So my research, and if you have any questions for the next 2 days, my research is basically on the fact that we're living in an ice age currently. And what I was taught in college was that at the beginning of the Holocene warming, see this up here is global warming up here? That the ice age ended here. That's what they told me. It ended right here. But once I got to grad school and I started looking at the last million years to even 5 million years, what I realized was that the Eemian was warmer than today. So at the last interglacial, they call it interglacial because it means we're still in an ice age. And that when we come up here, it's warm and we have cities and then we have Rome and we learn about sports, which are stupid.
Amen.
Hey, let your team beat up. Let's go. Where? So the times of stupidity are here, 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 and here. So humanity has only been dumb for about 40,000 years, but we've been getting destroyed for 400,000. And the reason I go back to 400,000 is because I'm a scientist. And the only facts I can find are the Sumerian kings list, which goes back that far. So that's how far I go back. So if we had kings 400,000 years ago, then there was stuff going on. Definitely cities, definitely rulers, definitely different, because we just found language right here. So these dumb people for the last 500,000 years, they didn't know how to speak, but they had kings. So if you're not already picking up what I'm putting down, you should be questioning the narrative. So here's the global warming. Warmest time ever on Earth, except that 100,000 years ago, it was warmer by 1.4 degrees than it is today, according to satellite data, which is not made up, it's actual data. So around 120,000 years ago, it was warmer than now. Have you ever seen that in a newspaper? No. Yeah, and back here in the Holocene, during this beginning of the Sumerian kings list, it was also warmer, which leads me to believe that we probably had a society just as big of Homo sapiens back then as we do now, just a lot less stupid. and the reason that we keep getting taken out is because of these lines. So I want to draw your attention to the rapid shifts in this lower graph here. Because in the last million years, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, you can count them out. We've had a lot of times when there has been major temperature shifts. Now, these are driven by a mechanism. And what people have been struggling with for the last decade is to determine that mechanism. And anytime there's a new flavor of coffee or cannabis, you want it. And the new flavor is Micronova. It is. But unfortunately, it's just another tool in the toolbox. So like one of the tools I didn't have as a geologist was the electric universe model. So I didn't know I could be looking at plasma discharge. I didn't know that ancient man was actually drawing Pyrrhat instabilities on the rock. People were like, no, that's a centipede. No, they did this dance. Which, it's not funny, Laird Scranton saw the Dogon do the dance. And they were dancing the Squatter Man.
Wow.
Which was dancing in the aurora. And they saw it back here. And they remembered it. Because I guarantee you, if the sun set and there was a big purple dude dancing, you would remember that. Right? And you'd keep that alive. The problem is now we're so far down the line, we've forgotten what it means. Not only that, there's controllers, governments, that are purposely controlling you. They don't want you to know about your past because you would not comply. You wouldn't. Society would be a lot different if we had the truth. But the truth is that the controllers know that these events occur. And that's the secret. And the secret is cosmic catastrophe. And the problem is that we don't have very little information. So I'm going to bring it down into a real recent time. What you're looking at is since the Holocene Warm. And we're going to get to what happened right before this warming. Because right before the 11,000 year warming, now this is after 65% of all megafauna on one side of the earth went missing in a week. That happened right back here. And if you think the mammoths died off here, you've been lied to too. There have been mammoths that are found that made it as far as 6,800 years ago. But they don't mention that because it doesn't fit the story. But you can get the paper. We're up in Siberia. The mammoths were essentially extinct back in the 11,000 year event. But 8 or 10 varieties made it. Most of them were gone by 9,000 years ago. And the last one ever found was supposedly dated to 6,800 years before present. That's pretty amazing because I'm sure almost all of you think mammoths were extinct back then in 11.5, right? Except Greg Allison, he knows.
Wrangle Island.
Yeah. So, and guess what? Fairies and elves are real. Homo floresiensis proved it. And then we found a second species this month, also on an island complex of tiny people. So, if elves and fairies are real, giants are real, probably. And we know the Smithsonian has been hiding mummies and tall people. And Dan at Stanford wouldn't tell me anything. But now let's go back to the ruse and the misinformation that everyone has in the world. This is burning up. And this is temperature going up. 6,000 years ago, it was warmer. And in fact, we've been steadily cooling for the last around 3,400 years. So after the peak in the Minoan warm, it's been dropping off. And this is pretty much the same environment. Now, right here, I want to give you some more interesting information. At the end of the Maunder and the Dalton minimum, which are these two spike downs, the mini ice age and the Dalton minimum, there's a cycle called the Danskar-Oeschger cycle that only happens every 1,000+ years that kicked in right here. And many people, including myself, believe that explains this uptick into the solar max. And it was a mistake. Had the Danskar-Oeschger cycle not happened here, we could have dropped into ice age. But because we won't have a saving blast of energy for another 900 years, we're probably fluxed. Because, look, it's steady, and then it starts cooling, and then it recovers, and it levels off, and it starts cooling even more, and it levels off, and then the next step is ice age. And the reason I say that is because it's never, ever not worked out that way. Even 400,000 years ago, when there were people, they couldn't burn enough to change the temperature because climate systems are controlled by the cosmos. They're controlled by solar systems. They're not controlled by people burning fires. And the idea is, and the reason you're blamed is because they want you to pay your taxes. They want you to go to work. They don't want you to know the information. And I don't know why that is. And that's unimportant. What's important is that all of you think about the information and that somehow there'll be a breakthrough where DuByne talks to this guy and they figure something out and we move to the next step. So science is about walking a path, not about winning a prize. If there is no prize in the end, if we're talking about cosmic catastrophe, we're talking about death, famine, bad times, but we're also talking about renewal, the destruction of this empire model that is keeping people sick, feeding them poison, raping the earth of natural resources, destroying biodiversity. These are all things I care about because I live on Earth. It doesn't make me a Democrat. It doesn't make me a libtard or a liberal. It doesn't make me a Republican. If you want to label yourselves those things, that makes you an asshole. It does. Because it doesn't matter who you vote for. They don't care about you. They want your vote so that they can get paid off. They get paid off in the end. And that's the revolving door that I revealed from Monsanto and the FDA. The way that these CEOs were getting positions in the federal government and then getting paid $5.4 million a year to tell you that your grain was safe. And then they came back here and said, I'm telling you what food is safe. Is so bizarre that if you actually showed it to someone that didn't know about it, they look at you and they're like, you're full of shit. That's not real. And then you tell people and they're like, oh my God. And then they go to work. That is it. That's all that happens. Oh my God. Baby, got any bugles? I love those Pringles. It's like made of cardboard and styrofoam and they make it look like a shit. So we're back to the cosmic catastrophe. And here they want to tell you it's global warming and it's your fault. Well, what happened then? Was this our fault? Did the Sumerian king smoke too much pot?
Yes.
They did. And they paint themselves in gold.
Cows.
So we have a lot to learn, but I want to teach you today a little bit about cosmic catastrophe. And there's many ways of looking at it. So if you want to look at it at the Doug Vogt scale, the Ben Davidson scale, when we're talking about cosmos interacting with effects, because Ben gave us the part of us moving through the solar system. And that comes from work out of Israel and work with Spenzmark. Niv Shavir, he studied the long scale 100 million year cycle, which is actually the galactic arm cycle. And so if you know what the galaxy looks like it has these big S's where there's some thick areas of stars and some thinner areas. The solar system we live in travels through the galaxy on a slow scale as the Milky Way spins. And there is a definite cycle in there, 60 to 100 million years. It may correspond to the 65 million year mass extinction cycle, which the dinosaurs were killed by a comet. And that, again, is a false narrative because the Holocene mass extinction was also caused by a comet, but 7 of them, and then 15,000 other objects that hit the west coast of North Carolina, and on and on and on. And some piece of the shell that hit Four Corners region and killed all the Clovis people that day. So that's not just a comet. The comet is part of the story. And as soon as we found the comet under Greenland during the Holocene mass extinction, we found another comet under Greenland at the same time. And then everyone's like, what about Hudson Bay? And then someone's like, what about the Carolina Bays? So now we have 25,000 objects hitting 11,500 years ago. Did you know that? No, but you know that NASA said a comet hit Greenland because a comet killed the dinosaurs. This is a story. It's bullshit. Because I guarantee that when the dinosaurs went extinct, there were 20 comets and 500 other things. And our magnetosphere probably got ripped off too, and on and on and on. There is a multiplicity of effects. Multiplicity. So it means, and when I started back in the 90s looking into the Milankovitch orbital forcing, I was blown away by Newtonian mechanics of our solar system and the fact that the Earth every 26,000 years wobbles like the precession of the equinoxes, and that it has an obliquity pattern, and then there's an eccentricity of the orbit. And I'm like, can we check this? And you can't. But what we do have is astrology and astronomy and the knowledge of precession built into megalithic structures. So we know that's one of the cycles, but we haven't proven what that cycle does. And we know there are other cycles because this is way less than 26,000 years, and something definitely is going up and down. It is, and here it's going down and down and down, but now you're burning up, we're all going to die. Remember. So what am I getting at? And I'm all over the place, but the information is important. This is a solar flare, coronal mass ejection included. So just to get if you get a solar flare, and we get an X flare, a C flare, an M flare, you don't have to get sun with it, for those that don't know. A flare can come off the sun and produce no coronal mass ejection. It's just some energy, and that's a good flare. But the more stuff in the flare, the more fluxed we are at Earth, especially if it's coming our way, because this stuff will hit us. I portend that the Carolina Bays are that. They were a plasma filament or a coronal mass ejection of excessive scale that was Earth directed. And at that moment that North America turned around and that splatter hit us, it was desert and no more people. And on the other side of the world, as the magnetosphere got pressed, the mammoths froze. That made it through, by the way. And the mammoths froze as the magnetosphere on this side smashed flat. The low pressure system over here in Siberia would have been wicked. And in fact, if you stand in the Four Corners region, you're actually like pointing straight through the earth at northern Siberia up in Ukraine. So it's like the opposite. What is that called when you're opposite of the earth? Yeah, it's like an antipode. So at the coldest place where the weirdest stuff happened and the most muck happened, you come over here to Four Corners and it looks like, damn, what happened out here? Got scorched. So all the soil was burned off. The Great Salt Lake and that gypsum rim of turquoise that goes all the way around Four Corners is probably the center of the blast, because you need electricity and heat and water to evaporate out of the whole planet there to get that turquoise. And if you look at the turquoise ring, it's big enough to be a coronal mass ejection impact. It's like 4 states big. So that might be the impact site. And then the opposite side of the earth is where everybody froze to death. And this is a quick event, but I'll tell you what, if you were in Four Corners, you'd be dead. And you might be dead on the other side. These types of events are very rare. And why do I know that? Because I want to calm you all down. This is not to get scared now. It's to realize you have a chance. Whatever these major events are that happen every 100,000 years, the last one just happened. So what happens next is it just gets cold. So right now, all it's going to do is get cold, according to what we know. I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm showing you the data. That after it's warm, it gets cold. Now, many people are speculating what that cooling is. I know as a geologist, there are 2 events that happen every 26,000 years. And I proved this by traveling all over the globe, looking in sedimentary basins and quarries everywhere at rocks from 400 million years till present. And they are all deposited in cycles, which consist of one environment laid over another environment. And the environments are typically not contiguous, meaning that they're from very different places. Where if I'm sitting in the coastal plain here, surrounded by clams and worms, for some reason, instantly, I'm now in 80 feet of water. And there is no place on the earth that this isn't the pattern, that every 26,000 years, this happens. There are some unique formations out in Zion where there's thicker or thinner deposits, but the general depositional environment on our planet is periodic and episodic, like climate. Which makes sense because environments are driven by climate. So therefore, the rocks that are representative of the environments are driven by this very graph. And look up here. So when I look at the cycles in the rock, I'm actually seeing this. This is the precessional signal, which is changing the temperature up to 5 degrees every 26,000 years, which means you go from Florida to New York, Florida to New York, Florida to New York. So if I laid the Florida sand on top of the New York sludge, back to the Florida sand, that's what you find in the rock record. But the shift is instantaneous, geologically speaking. So what I want you also to know when you're looking at data is that these vertical lines are estimates of proxy data. They have some data points and then they extrapolate. And we're going to get to that as I finish up the talk here on what that extrapolation means. This vertical line here, which they want to pin on a comet, or they want to pin on a micronova, or they want to pin on whatever, is not one event. But on this graph, it's one event. Sure looks like it. Here's the last of the ice age, and here's the global warming. Boom! But here are the unfortunate facts. Right here, I'll give you, this is a good one. So this is the vertical rise we just looked at. And just like in global warming data, you know how they stop at some point? They're like, look, it's going up. That's because if you keep going, it goes the other way. So it depends on how much you look at it. And how many people have heard of the Younger Dryas? It's half. Did you know that there was a first Dryas and a second Dryas and probably another Dryas called the Miss Dryas? Oops Dryas. So we have the first Dryas and then the Oops Dryas and then the second Dryas and then the warming and then the Younger Dryas. But number 5 is what caused the mass extinction. That's what's in the book. It's number 5, Greg. Which is such BS because I'm like, well, this is a pretty rough 3,000 years.
Yeah, no shit.
And that happened from a comet that hit Greenland. When did it hit? And then what happened here? Did we all of a sudden burn too much trash and warm the earth? And then we got smart, and then a little comet hit. And then... So the facts are in. There are too many facts, and there are too many experts. But the point is, there is a multiplicity of effects. And I'm going to tell you that by watching our channel and other channels of people here, suspicious observers, and looking against the mainstream, what you've been learning over the last few years is these effects. What will happen? When I talk about grand solar minimum, if you listen, that is when the sun goes through a 400-year cycle. And all you have to do is Google grand minimas, the Homerian, and then on and on. Every 400 years, it gets cold for 100 years, and everyone starves. And this has been going on since the beginning. You would think a pattern that simple would be taught in 4th grade. And they'd be telling you, our 400 years is over, honey. And you'd be like, I want to be a farmer, Daddy. But no, they're making apps for people to stare in the square. Because the longer you stare in the square, once you realize there's no more food in Walmart, you're already dead. And there's no one you can get. You're sick, you're weak, you're already medicated. Are you going to go and kill the government? You're going to cry like a baby and die. Like everybody else. And so lots of people died on that blue line. In some regions, there were tens of thousands of people that died in weeks. And there's lots of information we don't know that happened there. And so imagine what could happen there. When we're talking about 15 degrees of variation that happen instantly. Once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instantaneous temperature fluctuations over 3,000 years up to 15 degrees. That means you went from Florida to Edmonton to New York to California to Maine. So you would not be having much success doing anything on that earth. And it might just be the multiplicity of small effects that killed everybody. And then everybody's sick and weak. And then this comet comes and they're like, oh my God, I can't even get the live stream to work. But what I want to tell you is a few things. When you have an instantaneous rise in temperature, it can be only a very, very few things. Either your position versus the heating element changes. Like if this is a hot guy and I walk toward him, I'm going to be hotter. Right? That's a very obvious thing you can all understand. Or something happens with the atmosphere to allow us to hold more heat. And that's where the greenhouse effect comes in and also doesn't make any sense. Because the greenhouse effect actually, we now know, not only causes warming, but is followed by rapid cooling. Because it eliminates the albedo effect. Because once you start to actually do math and add variables, and you don't compartmentalize yourself to a theory that's total BS, then none of the theory works. Because once you greenhouse the planet, it gets warm for a day, then the sun never hits and it freezes forever until the clouds go away. And then it's only when the clouds go away that it will warm up again. And so that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at our Earth that got sick and the response mechanism to it recovering. And so anyone that claims that they know what happened in the first dryas and the second and the third and the fourth in the younger dryas is missing the boat because there was probably a proton event. We know there was a proton event because Rex Bear and I went back to the largest Charlemagne event where we went to an area where there were petroglyphs being drawn during the Charlemagne event and they grew a plasma discharge. Imagine that everyone called feather until I made that video because that petroglyph isn't feather. That petroglyph is shitting my pants, drawing this thing in the sky. What is that, man? Give me a rock. And now we can put pieces of the puzzle together. Then we could probably say that the Charlemagne event might have been in here and have something to do with the sun. The sun going into shutdown. Because we now know as grand solar minimums occur and the sun shuts down, our magnetosphere shuts down. The sun has to be active to give us good magnetosphere. And that when the magnetosphere shrinks is when we get major auroras in these. And if the sun were to shoot out a proton or a solar mass ejection at a weak magnetosphere, the sky will light up. The exact opposite of what the mainstream told you. We all read over the last year, no more aurora. You all heard that. It's all over, Johnny. And then a week after they published that, there was a dragon in Iceland. Never seen before. So here's the problem. The problem is that we're learning. And that's why we all came to the conference. So that we can all learn why we've been isolated. Now the sun is in a very strange state. It is shutting down. All the models are pointing to the sun being very dangerous and potentially outbursting very soon. And I can tell you why that's true, because the last M flare was in 2017. We are now in an M flare drought. So we need 5 M flares this year. And we're now in an X flare drought. And that means at any moment we'll have 5 M flares and 2 X flares. And that's not good, because our grid that Greg's going to talk about is not hardened. And 10 years ago, they claimed it was 5% hardened. And I just confirmed with him that 10 years later, it's 4.9% hardened, which means we're not really getting anywhere, except in the state where he is. I mean, he actually is, they're doing a little better work there. But this baby is volatile. And we are doomed to experience what the Charlemagne event showed the ancients, that they had to drop everything and draw it and write it down. We are doomed to repeat that the ancients had to draw that squatter man. They had to drop everything and do that, because the sun is dynamic and it will outburst, and it will happen in our lifetime. I guarantee it. Everyone in here, if they live for just a few more years, will experience an X flare. And if it's an Earth-facing X flare, you will experience a blackout. Maybe not in your city, but on TV. You will see Beijing explode and Chinese people jumping from a building. Is that China and Beijing? Okay.
David's moving over here now.
So cosmic catastrophe isn't our future. So I implore you, it is important not for you to listen to what I say, but to listen to what everyone says and to make a decision on what the rest of your life is about. Is it about playing along and playing a game, or is it about shifting your thought pattern to thrive in the future? And where you actually have to opt out. It's not easy. You have to opt out of your life. And financially, that's not easy. But you can do it in a rural area. You can move away from everything like I did and pick a job you never had and become someone else that is now the person that lives each and every day to be self-sufficient and grow food in case something like this happens. Because I guarantee a cosmic catastrophe will happen, maybe not in your life, but we are living a cosmic catastrophe now. And it's not the grand solar minimum. The grand solar minimum just happens to be happening now. That's a time of farming difficulty. The cosmic catastrophe is not a time of farming difficulty. Farming difficulty means bread is $8 a loaf and you can't get all this fancy shit in the supermarket. There's no more avocados, Dad. I'm going to die. Right? Eat the hummus. Well, we're in a time, the magnetosphere of our Earth is waning. And I don't know if you know what that means. I was going to go into length about all these topics, but all the people I invited are going to go into length. Robert Fields is going to talk about that. Magnetic reversals, magnetic excursions occur at the same periodicity of the precession of the equinoxes. I knew this in 1989, and Robert Felix was a hero of mine because my stratigraphic model matched his evolutionary model. I couldn't tell anyone in academia because they were like, Robert Felix! That's literally how they treated him in 1991. But I guarantee any smart scientist that's a paleontologist would want to shake Robert Felix's hand today, as long as they're not at the university, as long as they're at this conference. And that's because his ideas are true. Stephen Jay Gould from Princeton and Niles Eldredge heavily studied evolution. They said there is none. We have a bunch of shit and no in-betweens. And now I can see it quite clearly. There's 800 species here, and then the next line, there's 400 new species and no more of these species. That is not evolution. That is cosmic catastrophe, where all of these species die, and then the next day, there's 800 new ones. It's not the aliens genetically modifying you while they anal probe you either. But it is cosmogenic. And the one thing we know that changes DNA comes from the sun, comes from pulsars and space. And that's either solar cosmic rays or galactic cosmic rays. The only thing that scientists have ever been proven, except Monsanto, to change genetics is cosmic rays. And when the magnetosphere wanes, cosmic rays increase. And when cosmic rays increase, we now know through the work of Spenzmark that has been decapitated by the mainstream. I think I have a slide in here. I'm going to try and find it. Cosmic rays force cloud nucleation. They also make entire populations insane about chemtrails. But commercial airlines at 18,000 feet are not spraying chemicals. It would serve no purpose. It would do nothing except make crazy old ladies in trailers go, chemtrails! But cosmic rays cause the clouds out of commercial airplanes to nucleate longer. Now, I am not anti-chemtrail. They are spraying. They've been spraying since the 50s. Stratospheric aerosol management occurs above 58,000 feet to 110,000. How many people have seen a plane at 75,000 feet? You can't. And why would a covert government group that's trying to shield us from the sun or kill you secretly spray lines above your heads? It's the dumbest idea I ever heard. But they will certainly allow everyone to spread that to mash up the information, which is why all grand solar minimum people, full circle, are now flat earthers. But no one in here raised their hand because we're not. So the truth movement is specifically being manipulated by the controllers to wash out the truth. So it's up to each and every one of you to be diligent in what is real and what is not real. Chemtrails are real. Commercial airlines do not produce them. So if you see a Lufthansa jet or an American Airlines jet, and there's a contrail that goes all the way across the side, and there's another one that's making an X, there's a 99% probability that that is a persistent contrail, not a chemtrail. Because the odds of them being able to spray at that height to specifically know where that's going is zero. And the people that think that they're making a cloud to block the sun at that height is even more bizarre, because you would just have to drive a mile down the road and your chemtrail's now not blocking the sun. And then there's people that think, well, they do like 800 and then it spreads out. You would not do that down in 20,000 feet. You would do it at 100,000 feet, because that umbrella up there would stay for years. And anything you sprayed in the lower atmosphere would dissipate in hours. So it would literally be like throwing money, a secret thing to poison you. Let's throw the money out when they could poison you slowly forever if they actually release the toxins up higher. So there's a lot of problems with the chemtrail controversy coming into our realms, but it is real. But it's not all chemtrails. The cosmic rays are changing the clouds. 10 years ago, we needed new clouds. You want to believe the words I'm saying and you're on the fence about commercial airlines are simply persistent contrails, you can start to research the air traffic control. Around 2004, someone said, hey, come look at this. And he looked and he said, that's crazy. And they saw all of North America was crisscrossed by lines, contrails that had never been there before. And about 4 years later, the same guy said, oh my God, it's getting worse. And so the contrails became more and more persistent over the last decade, as cosmic rays have now, as of last July, reached a new cosmic ray maximum. It hasn't been this way ever since before this time. We don't have information back then, but we know about Squatterman and strange things in the night sky. So the cosmic rays are now at a point where when you go out and look at the sky, you shouldn't recognize anything. It's not because they're poisoning you. It's because they want you to think they're poisoning you so that you don't know what's happening. The magnetosphere is waning. And within a few decades, if we drop down to 5 or 10%, you can't go outside. If you were to go outside, you'd be dead in a few hours if the sun was out. And if it continues to increase at the rate it's going, in about 10 or 20 years, they will have to ground all flights, or we'll be flying low and close to the equator. Because if you flew up to 70 north latitude at 40,000 feet, you could die. It'd be like in a dental x-ray like the whole time. These guys are saying 5 years. I'd like to be calm. All right, so let me wrap it up. Two things that you should take away from this talk. That the information is clearly there for you to look at. You can go study cycles. You can study the sun. You can study the fact that we're still in an ice age. That this is global warming has happened before. And it's been warmer than today over the last 500,000 years. You can also go to Robert Felix's talk and realize that magnetic excursions and reversals happen every 26,000 years. The last one happened here. And sometimes there's a flexure point in the middle. So if we go back in time, we see every 13,000 years a magnetic excursion. And you add 13 plus 13 and you get the precession of the equinoxes. So I started thinking, wait, those cycles I saw, 13,000 years of deep and 13,000 years of shallow, has to do with this cycle, which is one of magnetic reversal, which drives evolution, which drives climate catastrophe, which is driven externally. We still don't know what the mechanism is, but it could be the sun, plus our place in the universe, plus the spin of the earth, plus many other things we didn't even discover. So there's no reason for us to need an answer why it's happening. What we should know, based on the information I showed you, is that it is happening. It happens again and again and again. Let's just look up at the Pleistocene. This is the precession of the equinoxes, shifting the temperature 6 degrees up and down. Again and again. And so we know that's happening. So there's no reason why it wouldn't stop. We also know that the magnetic field has been waning since 1905 and is rapidly shifting. And Mavstar, who just contacted me this morning, apparently, he wanted me to be able to Skype him here because he has some information that the new readings on the Mavstar Observatory are showing an extreme increase in the movement. The pole is now right off the shore of Ukraine. Wow. And if it's speeding up, how fast can it get? Could it be in 5 years that we flip? Because if the magnetic field drops down to 10%, human life is going to be completely different. Find a cave. And please stay for the rest of the talk because I would have told you my opinion on magnetic reversals and other things, but I wanted to give you a general overview of the lack of information we have as humans. You've been lied to, you're coddled in the media, and you're grouped into flat earthers because you're learning and they don't want you to know anything. Any questions? Yeah, just hit that green thing in the back. We got 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Hello. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go.
Okay, so on the chart, we're at the top.
Yeah, the Holocene Warm.
Okay, so you said that temperature driven.
Huh?
Coming down. We're coming down.
He's sitting here. That fella's sitting here. Nobody else is sitting.
Oh, rays are, the sun is,
Sometimes.
so what then, I don't know, I guess, my question is, what signs do we identify that are going to warn us or tell us or show us that we're entering
It's slow. It's slow. It's happening now. Catastrophe is slow.
I'm gonna watch on Easter time. That's what threw me off. Oh, is it?
Learn to grow food. You have the time to bring it out.
when we're gonna shift.
No, the magnetic reversal.
Good, how are you?
Trying to put these sensors on.
I'm Greg Allison.
I know you from YouTube.
I
know of
you got the job on?
Glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say
A tripod.
right
Right away. Just take it out. He's taller. Just take it out that.
Never mind me.
Greg Allison.
My man.
You need to plug it in.
Oh, well, just a second. I want to make sure I have everything open for correctly.
It's nice. It's a real thin jacket. You're not gonna sweat. How much is he gonna charge us for that?
You got a 5-minute break?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give David 5 minutes. Is that a Lenovo? No.
See what's happening here. I guess I gotta close it down and then start it back over. Look at where everything is.
Oh, that's good. Oh. Okay. What, did you just have a folder?
Yeah, I have a folder inside there. Well, I got a PowerPoint.
What's your porn? Full house.
Yeah. All right, so help me find it. Put it on, says Denver.
Would you have a good other one?
Yeah, let me get it on the stick here. I got it on my stick.
Anytime. You got a stick?
Yeah. Technical breakdown. Hold on. There.
Check 2.
Come on.
No, it's nice and hot. Well, DC is.
Do you have your water bottle, sir?
Second.
Do you have a water?
No, I don't.
Do you want just a cup?
No, I'm good for now. I
I
usually
needed
don't
it at
get.
52.
I usually don't get dry mouth. I'm pretty good.
If you do, I'm just in the back to say cachet water.
Okay. What I would like though is to have a little bit of light versus last time it was totally dark
Yeah,
in
do you
here.
know what that is?
Before they had like just some side lights on that made it was
I-
pretty
I
dark,
agree
but we had
with
some
you.
side lights. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I came to Colorado yesterday and I looked at it and it's like, this is pretty much
Okay, I'm just starting the PowerPoint right now. Is anybody? Can you hear me in the back there? I don't really have a microphone. I guess I'll have to raise my voice, but like.
There's your mic.
Okay, well I gotta wait for this thing to start up here.
Before we get started and his PowerPoint loads, let me just tell you a little bit about David DuByne. I thought he was much shorter.
Thank you. Compliment already.
No, I started watching him probably back in 2013. I might be right.
Yeah, right when I started the channel.
And we started chatting, and he was responding to me. I was like, wow, I like that. So when I decided to have a channel, I was gonna do the same thing, and I started a Facebook page called Solar Shutdown to watch the sun. People were interested. There were like 1,500 people in the first year, and then shortly after that, I started the Oppenheimer Ranch project with my partner, who's not here anymore. And it was 3 years before we put up the first video about climate. So it's been 4 years since the Oppenheimer Ranch project started. About 3 years since I put up the first video. And in that time, I watched David's channel grow, the birth of Christian Westbrook, who I tried to help. I said, dude, stop being so weird, man. And now I'm crazy, but he was a little weird in the beginning. But once I spoke to him in person on Skype and Christian, we were immediately friends. We weren't doing this for any ulterior motives except for to spread the truth. And we immediately picked up on that as humans. And because at first, like, and Christian, even after I Skyped him first, the next day he called me and said, I'm sorry. And I was like, he wanted to make sure, and he did. He came, wherever he was, no one knew where he was. he came to my house. He was there the next day. And he looked around. He's like, you are you. You're you. You live in a barn. Damn. You poop in a bucket. He checked up on me because he never met anyone as honest as me who wasn't in it for something. But
God, I can't see.
I'm unique. Please don't live a minute in my life because you might still be in the penitentiary. Yeah. So without further ado, I give you David DuByne.
All right, thank you. Happy we're all here today. And I remember people saying, hey, can you make something special to try to give us a greater idea where the food pricing is going? And Diamond just alluded to it. We've got these longer cycles, and this shorter one here in the 400-year period is going to affect the food production globally. So I wanted to try to give you an idea that it is a cycle. It's mathematically based, and it's a cycle. And I want to try to give you some forecasts as to where I feel the food is going to move to. So I'm going to stay right close to my computer here. And one of the first things we need to know about this is, even though there were food spikes, and this is from 1755 on the bottom, and it moves up through 1800. So I want you to remember this date here around 1785 or so. I'll show you something later on to try to connect these two. But this is Central Europe here, and they went through different areas in what Czech lands, which is the Czech Republic now, and also in Germany and Switzerland. And then they showed you how much the food prices rose depending on how good or bad the harvest was. So now this is really important to understand that it wasn't just cold and then food was expensive forever. They had price rises of 4x, quadruple food prices, and then it came back down and it was stable for a few years. And then it rose back up again. Bad harvest, but then it fell back down and food prices stabilized to somewhat similar to what they had originally today. And then bad harvest, whoosh, right back up again. It was up and down, 3x, 4x, back down again, up 4 times, down 4 times. But if your food price quadruples, that's going to have a serious effect on the economy. People will stop spending instantly on almost everything, and they'll move over and then shift their spending habits. And you can see the same thing again. This is correlated here with all the, I'm going to use my timer so I know I stay on time here. But we see again, this is correlating, there's Paris down here. We got Brussels, Paris, and this is in the 1690s up to 1702. And we got Amsterdam. But you can see all of the food price rises occurred at the exact same time across Europe. But then again, after it spiked, it normalized, and then it spiked again, and it normalized. This is kind of, you're not going to get a full-on spike, and it'll never decrease. So you're going to have some good times. So if you didn't prepare enough, in the next iteration where the prices drop, you might be able to grab some grains or get a little more preparation done inside that second cycle that comes down. And remember, we're all talking about the Maunder minimum because this is where most people believe we're going again in this area. But those charts I just showed you were right in here as they were rising out of the Dalton or the Maunder minimum, heading into the Dalton minimum. And there was still a lot of tumultuous harvests as they were exiting out, and the sun was starting to get more powerful on the cycles again to build back up into some solar activity. It wasn't right here where they had all these bad harvests. They did, but I was trying to show you that even exiting out of this Maunder minimum, it still affected the harvest to those spikes that you saw there. And I wanted to see if there was any modern examples of how this food pricing would be affected for us as we go through our economies and we buy things. The global financial crisis, remember 2008, 9, and 10, well, these soybeans, beef, rice, and maize or corn all spiked in price. And remember, if you lived it, we all remember that, what happened. Things got too expensive. People shifted their spending habits, and there was a big movement in the economy. Housing, car loans, any types of loans, credit locked up. There was a huge shaking of the economy. Now, that was very temporary. What we're going into is a multi-decade event, and this is going to have some longer-term effects. So here we go. This is Bagan in Myanmar. Now, these temples themselves are built on older structures. That's another time for a different discussion. But there were previous civilizations there that are built on top of. But I'm showing you here that we have the sunspots, and this is an indicator of how much activity is in the sun. And then once we map these out over longer durations of time, we start to see they're higher in activity or they're lower in activity. But then that also drives the civilization cycle into terms of higher activity for us in terms of heat on this planet. We can grow more food. And we need more food for, if you're not worried about eating, you have time to think about mathematics, art, music, engineering, and other things that help us grow our societies. But these three are tied together. And the reason I brought up Myanmar is I used to buy coffee in Myanmar. And that's what got me started into this whole grand solar minimum thing. I'm somebody just like you, and my job used to be to buy Myanmar coffee. And we were finding cold weather crop losses and the killing of the new plants frozen in the fields and the farms out there, where they would overplant 12 to 14% because they were counting on the cold weather crop losses to kill off the new plantings. Now, this is in Burma, Myanmar. This is not somewhere way north. This is right here at 21 degrees latitude, right in this area. The coffee buying is right over here in the Shan State. I wouldn't have ever guessed cold weather crop losses in that part of the world. So this is what was being killed off, these new plantings that they put out in the field. They were smaller plants, of course, so they're going to be super susceptible to colder temperatures. Now, with the kill off rate here, I had to figure out what was going on because we were looking out about 5 years to figure out, is there more supply coming? Can we, you have to pay for this in advance. So you can't just get coffee production up and running. And again, you know, once you tell them that you want to get more production, they start here and they start growing out the seedlings until you get here and they put them out in the field. It's not like, hey, we want more coffee. And they're like, okay, thanks, next week. It's no, we want more coffee, wait a year to plant, or 2 or 3 for those things to come into production. Another thing that was happening was the top leaves on these were being burnt by the cold. Top leaf kill. Made no sense to me. I was like, what? That's silver oak, by the way, for the shade cover up there on the Arabica coffee trees. And this is what they look like full grown. But the tops of these plants were getting burnt also. So their yields were down. And that's what we were looking for. This is the gold right here, Myanmar coffee. The bean density also was being affected. And what that means is it got so cold at night that when the beans were forming, the little water pockets inside would freeze into spherules of water. And after it would be, solid ice in there. But when it melted, it would have left that hole and the holes would never fill back in. They would never grow back cellular structure-wise back and fill in. So the density of the beans was affected as well. So now I had all these 3 things: new plantings killed, top leaf damage, and then the bean density. And I started to look at why. Yeah. Now, I know some of you like coffee, so I thought I'd include the slide. This is double washed out here, and they have the big flats where they're drying, sun-dried. We've got the naturals here with the skins on it still, so you can get that nice flavor. And they were using Canamore 528 and Canamore P90 as a couple new varieties they were trying up there to deal with cold. Yeah, see, they understood the colds there in the Myanmar coffee farmers. So they got 2 new varietals here that they're trying to put out to resist the cold damage. And they just started these when we were there back in 2012-13. They saw the changes, and they were trying to deal with it as they move forward. So those of you who don't know who I am, I run the Adapt 2030 channel on YouTube. My name is David DuByne, and I also have Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast 3 times a week. You can find that anywhere on the net where things are hosted. Now, yeah, thank you. Now, it's not a secret. We already know what's happened before, so we're not going into this blind. We have some historical records along with climate records to put it together to know where it's occurred once, and we can kind of forecast where it's going to occur again. So this is the most famous map. You always see this one, the temperature reconstruction of the Maunder minimum. And when you look at the record cold temperatures occurring today, the coldest ever recorded ever in the history of the United States, the massive floods, they're all lining up right in these exact areas that cooled before. And discernibly on the map, you can see it. Morocco, record snows, record cold. We got up here as well, Norway right at the edge there. And then we got the loss of crops in the Ural Mountains right now. Oh my gosh, Greenland's heating, it's getting warm. Well, it got warmer back then too. Alaska is heating, oh, it's global warming. Well, wait a second, it got warmer in the Maunder minimum there. Huh? They're riding on a natural cycle. They're trying to capture your attention by riding a natural cycle and blaming everything else in between it. Now, I make bold calls where the food crops are going to be lost. Remember this? I did this one back in 2017. I even circled on the map where they're going to lose crops. Oh my gosh, right there, North Korea. You know, they're having the massive famine right now there because of loss of crops. And Heilongjiang, this is an area I reference all the time in my talks. Heilongjiang, that's a major wheat growing area in northern China. They're losing production left, right, and center this year. So it's kind of easy to pinpoint through history where the losses are because the losses occurred there before too. So it's just like mapping through history. It's not And I'm trying to do the temperature study with the science as well as historical accounts. And we got this big yellow thing off to the left there, and they say it has no effect on our climate. Well, where's our Earth? Where's the Earth in this thing? Yeah, where do you see it? Which one of these planets is the Earth, do you think? Yeah, we got it right there, that little one. Right, but in the scale of it, you understand that that thing's 1 million times plus bigger than our own Earth. And then you look out at it, and they're real nice. Here's our current solar cycle, and we're way down here. Actually, it's lower than the red line. The forecasts were off. But then when we take and we couple a couple of these solar cycles together, going back, 45 years or so with 4 solar cycles, then we can couple it and take that back into the 1800s, and they're just iterations of each other. That whole thing here going back over 300 years, that's just that little small box there. So you can map out the solar cycles and the activity, and each feeds into the next one in terms of the intensity. And here it's warmer there. It's warmer in the Minoan warming, medieval warming period, warmer. That's a 4,000-year climate chart. But in what we look at in terms of hundreds of years, just this little square on the end. We need to go way back in history to take a look. We can figure it out. Because bad stuff happens when the weather gets cold. And I know it's too small. I can barely read this thing right here. But let me go ahead and I'll try to point out a few things here for you. The Harappa civilization collapses right through here. And then we got the Yuan dynasty collapsing. The Mycenaeans are collapsing. What is it when we're dropping in temperature? You get all these collapses along the way. When we're increasing in temperature, we get up to the climate optimum, the Romans and the Chinese, the Han dynasty flourishing at these apex periods. But as soon as we start dropping, we get the collapse syndrome happening. Yuan dynasty collapses. The Han dynasty collapse right here. When we get to these bottom troughs and peaks, once we start coming out, good things happen again. When we drop, bad things happen. And we are dropping again. So we got the starvations, the plagues, the end of the Roman Empire right through here. Whoosh, medieval warming period, expansion of the Vikings, expansion of wine production in the UK or England, which now Scotland. Then we come back down to the modern minimum. We got the plagues, the collapses of dynasties, empires, and everything in between. It's all related on solar. The history of our world is dictated by the amount of solar activity we get. And then these are other ones like the Akkadian collapse, and it just goes through. Every time there's a drop in solar activity, it wipes out civilizations that were the most advanced of their time. You realize that. That's a sight. It's always the most advanced ever. Now, through these historical wipeouts and crazy things happening and just decimation of society and food price rises, there always has to be a culprit, Now, this is a proxy data for the execution of witches. Now, they weren't just burned, they were hung, they were drowned, they did horrible things to people back then. But one of the weirdest proxies that I found out of all my studies is where they had killed witches after trials. You'll find that you're looking for the most extreme weather shifts based on this map. Because they wouldn't have killed all those people there unless the weather was extremely something off to the uber outside of change that they never experienced before. So as we look back through, we know we're going to see the losses in Spain, like Almeria right now. All the greenhouses getting destroyed from wind, hail, cold, loss of crops and shortages in the UK because what they couldn't grow in Spain. So we're seeing all types of incredible record snows, record hail, record rain, all through the same area here, all the way down into Croatia, Slovakia, Slovenia, all here. And it's matching up perfectly with what today's weather shifts are. This is where they killed the witches because they thought the witches were responsible for the weather. So when we come here, we're starting to see the matchups again. So if it's not happening now, you can almost expect it'll get more tumultuous around the Netherlands based on what happened in the historical cycles. And again, NASA, never a straight answer, always so pretty with their charts. Like, look how perfect that is. That's perfection in the magnetic field lines on our Earth. So pretty. Ooh, nice graphics. It looks so tame, doesn't it? But when we get here, this is really what the sun's magnetic field lines look like. Yeah, that's pretty not so pretty as in such. Now let's put those two together. And you start to see how these field lines interacting can really affect our weather systems, magnetosphere, and drive and push jet streams and all types of things on our planet. Now, this is really the interconnection that they don't want you to see, because that sun is 1.2 million times larger than the Earth. Of course, electromagnetically connecting, it's going to have an enormous effect on us. We're a little tiny dot. You saw that chart, right? I do remember that I showed you the dot, the smallness of it. Now here's our sun right here, and we're 1 astronomical distance away from it, 1 AU. The magnetic field of the sun goes out 100 AU. We are so close into that sun. Whatever it changes, we're going to change fast. You know, I got clear out here at the bow shock, termination shock. That's 100 AU out, 100 times further than we're being affected magnetically. And again, that's where we are down here. And this is what's happening with our climate. And this is a lot of the shifts. Now I want to come back here to central England, and you can see when we have low solar activity, follow the arrow down, we get these drops in temperature. Again, here we got low solar activity, we get drop off in temperature. We're expecting another drop off in solar activity. This is affected when the solar activity drops off. This right here, this drives society. Who is it? Kissinger said, I don't care if you control the money system, let me control the food, because if I control the food, I control the society. And that is well spoken and very true. This is what happens when food prices spike or are not available. We get tumultuous results in the stock market unless you're positioned in a certain way to take advantage of food price rises. We're going to get the food price spikes, which is going to spook people in their spending habits and shift. Then we got the civil unrest. Venezuela is coming to a country near you soon because we're going to get empty shelves rolling into 2023. And I'm going to stick by that call. And I'll never forget my friend. He's like, hey, David, I have my son's in 5th grade. He just started 5th grade. Can you make a graphic to explain it to him? So this is what I created here. Like the different facets of the diamond. We got the jet streams going out of flow, the atmospheric compression, rain events, the loss of agriculture, the sun going to sleep. Diamond talked about cosmic rays. We got the volcanoes, massive floods. That's only one part. Now, what's going to happen with the media? This is the important part. What to expect moving forward. The media is going to try to distract you so you don't see what's happening. They're going to go into overdrive to try to distract you. Absolutely. And it's not going to be a little one. It's going to be Hollywood-esque, everything unfurling at this time. There's going to be more surveillance of the police state and your social media. And I was told firsthand, your social media is to track you to see if you'll be a threat during this time. Your social profiles, who you're connected with, what you're talking about online, what you're doing, they're assessing your threat by using your social media profile along with your banking information. Now, what I've also noticed is the media in these last couple of months is in overdrive to assure you that everything is stable, that nothing's changing. Your intuitive abilities are waking up and you're starting to notice changes, but the media is swinging back saying, no, there's no change. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. They're in overdrive to assure you that everything's stable. And, you know, once you understand that it's not stable, you might behave differently. So I show this chart a lot. Whoever's watched my videos, you see this one. The magnetic waves, once they get to this point here at their widest point, they're canceling each other out. And this is where the instability is happening magnetically. There's about a 2-year lag on this one. Nobody's sure if it's 2 years or 3 years. But what you're seeing here, these longer, the more interference pattern causing more solar shutdown, if you will. What we're experiencing is actually just this little part here. We haven't jumped into the big changes yet. There's still a little bit of delay in that. And then where did that chart come from? Well, it came from Valentina Zarkova and her team in the UK trying to put this together. And they were using a quadrupole model, which is 4 magnetic fields. You know, we have a north and a south, pretty easy to understand. But the sun has a quadrupole. And what I mean by that is it's layered and it's 4 different poles on there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. I tried to match these up the best I could. And then they said, well, there's a missing component. What is the missing component? Well, it's this, the magnetic torus field that surrounds the quadrupole. So I tried to put this together to give you a good representation. I created this graphic because I didn't see anything out there to explain it. Now I want to make this thing move and I want to animate it where the layers of the sun are moving in the quadrupole. And then also you can see the torus wave encapsulating that. Now once Zarkova and her team added in the magnetic torus field on top of that quadrupole, then they pretty much got 100% statistical correlation. But it took this extra component of the magnetic torus to get them to that statistical, we're on it. Nobody has disproved their math yet. That's the scary thing. If they would have made a mistake, it'd have been jumped on, vilified, and everybody would have tried to. They can't undo their math. Their math is scary because it's so precise. Also, we can see how fast these are the fields on the sun when they're flipping from north to south, and the intensity, like how much energy is coming out during the flip from north to south, south to north on the pole in the sun. So the activity state, obviously, you see right here, that's a really active sun. Now we're coming up, and this is the solar cycle we're in now, and shoot, it's supposed to just drop off a cliff by solar cycle 25 and 6. It's going to be a rapid descent. It's not going to trickle. We're not trickling into this one. We are going to drop off. You look how steep that drop is. If this is 25, that's 26 at the bottom. If we're at the end here, there's going to be this rollover point between the next few years where we're going to drop straight off into the cooling, and it's going to be rapid. It's going to be incredibly fast. It's going to take me off guard too, and I'm right in the center of this. I am unprepared. Truly, how fast this is going to slow out and throw. So, secondly, if there were things happening, we should be seeing signs around us to verify is this true or not true. Well, this was put out, about 8 months ago? A lot of you have seen this one. But they were predicting here we would go into the coldest ever recorded for the thermosphere. Well, that's actually blasted below there. We're at the lowest ever recorded now. So the projections of going into this cool phase, this is from NASA. This is not from like a random website somewhere. This is NASA and their atmospheric physicists talking about the space age cooling. And we've actually dropped here into the all-time record now. It's been confirmed. All-time record cold in the thermosphere. Now, how was it explained to me? And I'm trying to explain it back to you. The sun has a charge and the earth has a charge. And they're different. We got positive charge and negative, like a battery. You got the positive and negative on the two sides. The sun is stepping down in its state of activity. So if this is going to shrink in electrical intensity, if you will, we're still too highly charged here. We're going to have to equalize somehow. So what would you do if one has too much excitation in it? It's going to have to discharge somewhere. And if it's truly happening, we should see other discharge patterns and strange things that verify also this electrical connection trying to equalize within the atmosphere or within the upper reaches of our, going clear up into the ionosphere. It's called the global electric circuit. And if there's differences in electrical connectivity, electromagnetic coupling of our Earth and the sun, we should really start to see changes in this. And we are. Look at this. We got an enormous amount of upward lightning now. That's way beyond what's expected. I mean, it used to be incredibly rare, but now every single storm has this. It's insane what's going on with the, ground to sky lightning that's occurring. And the amount of sprites, they used to be rare, like you never saw a sprite before. Now, almost literally 100% of thunderstorms and electrical storms have sprites associated with them. People are just snapping them every day now.
What is the reason for the ground to air?
Well, it's trying to equalize its charge. So think about that again. We're coming back. There's two different charges here. The Earth's charged negatively, and the sky, that electric circuit's charged positive. So there's trying to be equalization, and something's overcharged. So when you hear these sky sounds, a lot of sky noises these days, they think it has something to do with this equilibrium charge balancing going on, because the differential between the charges is driving something. So it wouldn't make whatever's in the crust could have whatever crystalline structures are in the crust. It could have something to do with the sounds, because they use the radio crystals back in the old days in the 50s. They used to use a crystal inside there, right, to be able to. So if it's a crystalline surface, of course, you're going to get some sound resonance coming out of that. And also these blue jets. Rare before, now we're starting to see exceptional electrical connectivity, the upper reaches of the atmosphere, which we haven't seen before. Now also, who's Steve? Remember somebody yesterday was talking about, hey, my name's Steve. Yeah. Here's your electrical rope coming out, going into glow mode off the plasma filament. Now, this was only discovered in 2017. A new person named it because they found it 2017. And since 2017, it's occurred 3 more times, but each successive time is more intense. Now we can actually see the field aligned currents wrapping in on themselves there in the plasma filament.
Where were those photographs taken?
One was Russia and 2 were Canada, and the first was Canada as well. So the 3 Canadian instances, and then this one was in Russia. But look how intense. You can actually see the field aligned currents coming down in a plasma filament. It's insane. And then we got the picket fence auroras coming off the filament structure. You got to tell me that this was only discovered in 2017, and then we got 3 more instances, and they're getting heavier each time we come down in iteration. There's definitely an uptick. And again, you know, you talked about squatter man. Well, right there, we got the middle column of the squatter man already visible in our skies. You know, the intensity plasma ram, but there's something going on. Because I'll bring you back to that there again. Like this thing right here, if it started to get those arms like we see in the petroglyphs, that's it. That's the center body right there of that. So the center body structure is already being shown visibly in our atmosphere. So what's going on? We got at least a part of squatter man visible now. Now, it didn't stay visible for so long. Also, if there's real changes, we should start to see changes in the solar wind, and we are. This comes from Smash-O-Mash, Daniel Nigro. If you want to follow his channel, excellent source for space weather as well. Smash-O-Mash, Daniel. He showed me these, gave them to me. Solar wind. Obviously, we get the pressure coming off, wrapping in our Earth, keeping our magnetosphere nice and tight, well, as tight as it can be. And then right here, no solar wind. Whoosh, everything let off and it's puffy. And I thought, well, when did this occur? Oh, January 12th of this year. This is years ahead of where it should be. And if we look at the plasma density too in the solar wind, we start to see the same thing. You can see here clearly where the wind is pushing in, and you can see our magnetosphere right there. The wind is pushing, solar wind's pushing and creating this collapse, which is nice and tight around our Earth. And then down here, we have no solar wind. We get that whoosh, puff off again. This shouldn't be happening right now. This is years ahead of the predicted forecasts of at least solar wind shutdowns and slowdowns. And then you notice that whenever, I'll talk about cosmic rays for a second, but I'm going to skip past this pretty quick because others will talk about it. But we get the high cosmic rays when we get to the low of the solar cycle, but there's about a 9-month delay lag on this too. So right at the peak, it's not exactly at the peak, it's offset by a few months because the sun will send something out, but the Earth's systems don't instantly react to it. There's a lag time there. And what does that mean for us? Well, we're going to be heading up into incredibly high cosmic ray density coming up. This is where we are now. They're forecasting to come up here somewhere. And the amount of cloud cover is going to be incredible moving through. Now, just a quickie thing here. This is how cosmic rays actually create clouds. Photochemistry, and they come in and with a positive charge, and then that's enough to create other chemical changes that then will bring you over to cloud droplets and nucleation occurring. And this, as it moves out from the cosmic ray, interacting chemically, photochemically, will create different charged particles, and they'll start binding to each other, and boom, at the end we get clouds. And that's all it's about, really. And you know, they're finding that the effects now are 7x more with this cascading effect that they're finding with cosmic rays, like a 7x increase. That's huge. Clouds doubling would be massive, but clouds 7 times, that's going to be, 1,000-year floods every time. And again, you know, you might have seen this one, the cosmic rays continue to increase. This is here over in Northern Europe, when we're looking up in Norway and Sweden area. And again, if we stay here right in the United States, you notice that some areas, especially up in Maine, are getting a much higher reading faster than in places like California, which is more of a steady increase of just a couple percent. But it seems like these more northern latitudes, like Norway, Sweden, Maine, etc., these cosmic rays are increasing more in the northern hemisphere in the upper reaches of upper latitudes versus lower latitudes. Now, the magnetic North Pole in motion, if you will. This here is one of my favorite ones because it goes from 200 AD, which the pole was over Russia in 200 AD, and then it swung back and did its drunken dance all the way through 1500 AD, about 500 years ago. So we know where the magnetic pole moved from 200 AD up to 1500 AD, and this is what it did during those centuries and millennia. But remember, it went all the way here to 200 AD, and look, it's tracking toward the exact same spot right here. So I'm thinking about a 2,000-year matchup in cycles here, because wherever it's going and it's increasing, it's going to end up right here. And that's real interesting because 200 AD, it was in the exact same place almost, literally less than 100 miles away on the track it's at now. Coincidental? Perhaps, not sure. But the European Space Agency stopped producing any more results after January of 2016. Why? Not sure, but the magnetic pole has shifted And you can see where it was in the year 2000. It was about here. And right now it's in the center of the Arctic. And then what we just heard, it seems like it shifted right over into land again, which would be terrifying because that is such a fast shift. We would not be able to cope with that. Now, the link between the low cloud cover and the galactic cosmic rays, I mean, this correlation here, if that doesn't show you anything, well, take a deeper look in. Heinrich Svensmark's the guy you want to look at for this information. For sure, Heinrich Svensmark, he goes through where we are in the galactic arm, the changes that occurred, and then how much watts are reflected back in space if we get to certain types of clouds. And they're generally right here, this 15,000 to 18,500 foot range is where this new cloud layer is blending in or bending in. And again, Cloud Mystery is the name of the film you want to watch. It's free on YouTube. Heinrich Svensmark. Once you watch the Cloud Mystery, that'll explain a lot more things that'll make sense to you on why these atmospheric compression events and once in a 1,000-year floods seem to be occurring daily. Now, with all this electromagnetic connection and loosening of our magnetosphere, of course, our cloud bands are going to shift. We got the jet streams moving. The cloud bands are going to start shifting and moving more north or south, depending on how history has worked itself out. But we also know through peer-reviewed research, I mean, there are thousands of papers on this. I pulled one that's a pretty easy to understand chart here. It just shows the galactic cosmic rays on a weakened magnetosphere, how much the intertropical convergence zone will move and where it will move. So some areas will get more rain, some areas will get less rain. So the ICTZ, or during the Little Ice Age and the Maunder Minimum, pushed more south. Now we're expecting another push as well, south. So these areas got wetter in the Little Ice Age, so we're looking at places in Africa. Some other places got drier, like Venezuela, and northern parts of Brazil got drier as this intertropical convergence zone moves.
And with the no color, is that mostly unaffected?
No, this is just where the actual bands of the flow in the atmosphere are. No, ICTZ is not anywhere up here. It's just on the equatorial bands. So they were just showing you where does it move. They used a couple different types of proxy. They went into caves, and those things that grow off the cave roof, stalactites, they cut them open. They're like tree rings. You can see how much water was seeping through, and they could get real wet periods or real dry periods. Also, when they go to alpine lakes, they drill down and they find how much pollen's in there, because more pollen means more plants. Less pollen means less plants. And then they can determine the species of the plant because the pollen has its own signature. Also, the jet streams are behaving strangely, which is also expected. That's not bend. That's not easy bend. That's just almost vertical. And then what we saw over the UK, actually, when I was speaking last week, the jet streams went vertical. That's not right. There should be some undulation in them. I saw a strong bend here that looked really strange, so I put this in when I was doing my presentation. But now it's vertical pretty much, and that's a problem. If we got vertical jet streams, that explains the equatorial vortex and all this heat you hear about. Oh, it's hot in the Arctic. Well, you got a vertical thing pulling off the equator straight up. Well, that's the cold one, but right here, straight up into the Arctic. That's coming from the equator. That should be pushed down and separated, but now the vertical jet streams are allowing incredible pockets of heat. But don't worry, the media already has an excuse for you. They already had it for you. Oh, they're trying to explain how this is working and that's working. The jet stream should have this undulation and U pattern, as it should look something like that, but not vertical. Not vertical. I'm sorry, that's just something wrong here. But it would be expected. And again, I showed this slide in one of my videos before. People liked it. Everything is warming faster than the rest of the Earth. So when we start here, Singapore is heating up twice as fast as everywhere else on the planet. Spain is warming faster than the rest of the world. Global warming is happening twice as fast in Alaska. It's happening twice as fast in Australia. Sweden's twice as fast. Adirondacks here in the US twice as fast. Canada twice as fast. Europe twice as fast. Mountains twice as fast. Berlin twice as fast. China twice as fast. Where's that other one at? Oh, South Africa twice as fast. And then Switzerland twice as fast. What is it? They went around the entire planet saying everything's warming twice as fast as everywhere else. So the whole planet's warming twice as fast as itself, basically. Yeah, and the reason I want to go in and talk about the heat is because this is the excuse they're trying to give you for all the record snowfalls this year. If it really was a heated ocean creating more evaporation, creating record cold and record snow, which is the story, then we should have seen the same thing in 1998 with the massive, most incredible El Nino ever seen before. Temperatures spiked right here, and please keep this in mind. I'm trying to give you a time reference here, because the evaporation excuse is what they're telling you right now to be able to explain record snowfall. When we come here and we take a look, this is off University of Alabama, Huntsville, the UAH data set. Here's that spike I just showed you before, and here was the peak of it. Well, it's only about not even a half a degree warmer. No, it's a tenth of a degree warmer here than here. Why didn't we see record snowfall here if evaporating oceans were the cause of all the record snow? We should have seen it at the exact same time because the heat's nearly identical. It's a tenth of a degree difference. So we should have seen record snow and record cold back in the 90s, but we didn't because it's a different mechanism driving the whole system right now, this grand solar minimum. Now, again, they can take a look at Australia and we take a look at Indonesia and we see where it got cooler during those times. So we can forecast out which crops are grown in which areas, which crops are going to decrease in yields, and you can start to map it out around the world. Well, Australia is going to start to get really wet. And the reason I said, remember that first chart I showed you and I said, hey, keep your eye on the 1780s? Well, this is what was happening in Asia in the 1780s. They had massive droughts. So food prices are spiking in Europe because of crop losses in the same time period. We know it happened in Europe and it happened in Asia. But Asia got drier and Europe got wetter. So we can start to map all these things out, which areas across the planet will have which effect and which crops are grown, and we'll know which governments are going to have trouble struggling to feed their people. Now, Indonesia is importing 250 million tons of rice at the moment. They're storing it, and they already know what's going on. So if truly we were going to get more rainfall and these things were happening, then we should start to see increased rainfalls across all these places in the world. So what we have here, this is Ayers Rock, Uluru, out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the Australian outback. These are waterfalls coming off from last year, and they had record rains each year, breaking the last record. And 2019 is absurd with the amount of water coming down. This is the outback now. It's becoming a verdant field, pasture land. All of northern Australia and central Australia are becoming green pasture lands again. Formerly deserts a few years ago. Now the water's coming back. If you look at the Sierra Nevada snowpack here too, this is massive. That is a massive change in one single year. The drought is no longer in California because they have so much snowpack and so many cubic miles of water that has poured down this year in the form of snow. Now they're even classifying these arc storms here. They're going a 5+ now. It's going to be a 5+. And they're trying to identify and show you these arc storms coming off the Pacific. They already know they're going to get more intense. So they're starting to reclassify it at a higher level to explain it away. They are going to have an explanation for you. But what does this mean? Well, these arc storms are going to be pouring so much more water over the coastal range there that you would expect other areas to have effects. And this is just this week, this map came out. So the dark purples are the latest ever recorded spring blooms. It's the latest spring has ever started on when leaves came to the trees. So the dark purples are the latest spring ever recorded, but the dark greens are the earliest spring ever recorded. So these arc storms blasting into California, they're getting an enormous amount of new rain and moisture right along the Sierra Nevada range, dipping over into the Four Corners area. That moisture is now making it over the range and really starting to bloom out a lot of stuff early, which is in a desert area, if you will. But then up here, it's getting dry and they're having really cold temperatures and just nothing's, the potato industry up there is gone, decimated this year. And then we got right here, again, latest spring on record, but that's kind of right down in the Kansas wheat area. And then right through the Smoky Mountains and that kind of range there, we get the earliest spring ever again. So what's going on with these temperature fluctuations and why are they so close to each other? Latest spring ever on record, earliest spring ever on record, a few hundred miles away from each other. So that's how much difference is going on, please.
I just noticed an anomaly in Florida and in California. Now, I can understand California because of elevation, but Florida from Lake Okeechobee there's that hook going up almost to Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah, that'll be the earliest. That'll be the earliest on record. I mean, something down here is getting more precipitation, warmer temperatures earlier in the season.
But there's the darkness is what I'm talking about. So most of Florida is early.
Yeah, because that's a dark green that you're looking at right here on
So
this
that's
spot.
just very early.
That's very early,
Oh,
wetter,
okay.
earlier. Plants are blooming earlier in these areas. But again, look how much purple there is. Just view across the United States how much lateness there is in there versus how much earliness there is in there. There's a huge difference, right? A huge amount of the United States is late, and it's going to get later each year as we move forward. And if it's going to get earlier, you could expect it to even get earlier as we move forward. So whatever's happening, either drying or wetting, it's going to amplify and it's going to continue on its trend from this point forward. So the trends are already starting to show themselves in different areas. Now, for you all who were looking for specifics, so I've had a couple requests. Dug in, I found this one. This is the amount of moisture above the averages here for this same time period right now, talking about the arc storm increases. So when we look at these dark blues, this is much more rainfall in these areas. So I had some specific questions about the Four Corners area coming out off of California after the range was coming with the arc storms. So anywhere you're looking at greens and blues, you're looking at an enormous amount of new rain activity and record rains and moisture patterns forming in these same areas. So obviously these areas are going to get greener and they'll become new grow zones. Which brings me to my next one here. These were the floods that took out 30% of America's stored grain crop. This is what they normally look like, the river systems, and this is what they filled to during that time. It's not normal. This is the highest amount of rainfall ever recorded, with the most days of Mississippi River in flood stage ever recorded. And that goes back to the early 1800s, not like 1880. The number of flood days have been recorded back in the 1790s on the Mississippi River. And we're at the highest ever. So that's another couple 100-year cycle. These are the destroyed grains, and this is kind of what our American grain crop looks like at the moment. This is what our fields look like at the moment. They're not getting in their planting this year, not even close. But the size of the waterway is exploding in size. Like, you get this is the normal one, but then look at this. That is a gargantuan shift in water, the amount of water that's coming down. But we're not just seeing it in the U.S. Iran, anywhere that's blue, it's the all-time highest recorded floods ever recorded in Iran. You got to remember they had accounts of the Silk Road traders at that time. That's how far back their records go, to Silk Road trading days. And this is still the most rain they've ever recorded ever. So this is a 2,000-year plus cycle they're looking at, 2,500 years of the most rainfall. And this is kind of what it's looking at in Afghanistan as well. Some of these rivers here haven't had water in them in 2,000 years. And this is the amount of flooding going on. It's not just a little bit of extra water. This is how much is coming down in the driest places on the planet. There is an extreme shift going on in our atmosphere at the moment. And then again, we look, there's the Afghanistan, like all that blue area is what I just showed you right here. That's the blue that you're seeing on the map right there. So when they're talking about these areas, Kandahar and all this area, Northwest especially is where all the old temples and pagodas and forts and that kind of stuff, they were all abandoned because they ran out of water. But the water's coming back thousands of years later now. Saudi Arabian deserts. This is how much water's come down this year. Saudi Arabian camels in verdant fields of flowers all across the Middle East. This is not located to a single region. This is everywhere across the driest regions of our planet. Year worth of rain in United Arab Emirates one day. This turned there in the driest. This is in the desert in the UAE. And here we go. This is the floods in a year's worth of rain in a day. This seems to be the new ramp up. A year's worth of rain, several months worth of rain, all coming down at the same time. And here we go. This is Yemen and Oman. Lakes are forming in the desert in Oman. Usually they'll get one cyclone every 7 years, one, but they've had three. They were getting one a month, and that's how these lakes were able to form. So something shifted in their patterns as well. Atacama Desert, the world's driest place, period, hands down. There's no other place drier in the world. Second year in a row where the blooms are here. Look at these flower blooms from all the excessive new rain coming in. Death Valley flooded this year. Right? So this rain pattern shift across all the driest areas of the world, if you have a crystal ball and you know past cycles, you could say, hey, these are going to become new growths. Now, maybe not Atacama, but other areas in the Sahel. Now, what I did here, this is a precipitation map Now, the bigger the cross is, the more moisture was pouring down between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago. So what they've done is they reconstructed the amount of rainfall coming down over the last, and this is mid-Holocene, around 4,000 to 6,000 years ago on this map. And here's the Chinese investment map as well. It's an interactive Chinese investment map. So I was starting to look and say, hey, there's a lot of rainfall here. And then I go, oh, there's a lot of Chinese investment there. I go, oh, look in the middle of Chad. That's going to be a new lake basin that will fill. Oh, look at all the Chinese investment that's right in that same area there. Wow, that's interesting. What about North Africa? Oh, they're up there too, same spot. What about Libya and everything? Oh, same spot. Oh, wait a second. Somebody knows something going on. So wherever you see a cross on this means increased rainfall on a certain frequency pattern, several thousand years. So I overlaid those two, and you can start to see wherever the dots are, those are Chinese investment projects. Now, it's a little statistical impossibly to be up here where you have all these areas in the middle of the desert surrounded by these. It's not coincidental. They know the patterns are repeating. And everywhere you look, you get the 100% match here. You got all the matches through here. You got the match in Morocco, clear out in Mauritania. You got the whole river basin getting, rail lines connecting all this through here. You got all, what are they doing in the middle, literally the middle of the desert? And they're putting investment project, oh, it's going to get rainier in there. Well, of course, they're connecting all these areas here for grow zones. Oh, up here in Sudan, are you kidding me? It's been dry for centuries up. Why did they go there suddenly? And then all this whole port area here, obviously, and then you come down into Tanzania further down. But what I found really startling is once I found this is a 7,000-year drainage basin map, when these used to be big lakes 7,000 years ago in the mid-Holocene called the African megalakes. What I found even more startling is when I overlapped it was too busy. I need to take the time to maybe make that different colors so you could see it. But some of these larger investment projects from the Chinese are lying on what would be the larger rivers filling into some of these mega lakes. So they're placing themselves on the dry riverbeds of some of these that are going to refill and become some of the largest waterways and tributaries as the deserts start to bloom again. That's what I found most interesting is some of these are right on the biggest waterways that are going to be forming up there in this new place. Somalian floods. This is what I'm talking about. This is the area in Somalia. So you can see this type of rainfall coming down is excessive and massive. It's shifting. Now, these are coming from 2017. Did you see anything strange in these photos? This is last year and this year. Yeah, elephants in snow, not something I'm used to seeing. This is in Southern Africa as well. Zimbabwe and South Africa both with these excessive snows. Also going over into, you can get over on the coastal area too, in Namibia, and they saw some excessive all-time record cold in Windhoek and a few other places this year. This is the desert southwest of the United States, Saharan cactus covered in snow. You don't see that too often. Giraffes playing in the snow, it's kind of an outlier. But all this is happening in the same year right now in the last few months, in the winter. So if I was smart in China and I'd set up all my new investment projects to take advantage of all the wet new areas, what I would do is I'd have to protect that, and I have to arm my fleet to protect my food supply. And then we got the string of pearls straight out of here. And it's actually going to be coming from here. They added a new port system in here. So we got the string of pearls. All they're going to do is deliver the food right back to Myanmar and then send it across to Kunming right here. Now, China created a new food grow zone. This one goes offline. North Korea, all these places go offline. But look, they're going to find new food grow zones here and deliver it back. This is their plan. This is what's planned. And also, what I learned in the UK last week when I went to Alternative View 10, I never heard about the European Neighborhood Policy or the Integrated EU Defense Force. Never heard about it. It's not the EU Army. That's the wrong lexicon. They want you to use that one. It's an integrated interoperability defense force. It's not an army, a defense force integration between all those nations. And where are they going next? They're going down in here. That's where they're headed to. So the entire United EU integrated military and defense force is actually going to start going through this area and placing troops down here. They're having a real difficult time figuring out how to start the draft because they don't have enough people. And part of the reason Brexit, they don't want the EU to exit out is because they're going to lose this stronghold here. They need the UK inside their defense force to make it legitimate. There's two different intergovernmental operating bodies that are forcing and wanting this whole area here occupied by EU troops. And we see it again here with the Union for the Mediterranean, and we see it with the neighborhood policy and the integrated EU Defense Force. Why are they all focusing on these same areas here? I just showed you it's greening. Chinese are there. Now the Europeans want to go there. What? This is the Roman grain growing map where they used to grow crops. So this is 14 AD, and you can see the road system that the Romans had all the way through North Africa. And these are also the grain growing belts that the Romans had to grow grains across the same areas. Now it's a little coincidental. The rain's falling there. These places are turning green. We got two massive military structures are going to be in there, China and the EU Integrated Defense Force, all vying for the same grain growing areas that were proven that they grew grain there to supply the Roman army and this Roman civilization at the time. It's a little coincidental that all those are matching up and overlapping. Now, the last thing, people said, hey, David, I think you went a little too far with this one. I don't think so. If you're going to take over this area to grow food, you're not going to want the local men there to be defending it. No army has ever successfully gotten into North Africa and stayed because they are ferocious fighters, and I'll give them props. Those guys are tough. They only know how to defend their countries. They don't stop, and they will defend it to the death. Those guys are so strong over there. And here they are. They got them to go voluntarily out of their own neighborhoods and grow zones and send them up to Europe by offering them. How do you get those defenders out of your country? You give them free, whatever it is, to get them out of there, because millions of men have gone up to Europe and they're not coming back. It's a one-way ticket, and they use the NGOs to run them across the Mediterranean. So they took maybe a possible military force of 1 million or 2 million defenders out of the equation by sending them up to Europe. So when they go down there with their defense force and the Chinese armies running around down there, there's going to be very little resistance this time. Like, this is a carefully calculated plan. And if it's happening in this particular area, I want to know what's going on with the rest of the Ukraine, and I want to know what's going on with Turkey, and what the hell's happening in Myanmar, because everywhere you look geopolitically, you're starting to see the same kind of like super long play chess game going out to get food grow zones. And here we got, these are the two. Now notice their insignias. I mean, it goes all over. It's the central, but it's covering. And then again, you know, this, see the same thing with the eagles, and it's always the same symbology. Got the movement on the coordination of center of Europe, MCCE. This is part troops going to control here. And then we got the defense policy down here. That's all the Europeans combining on their defense force. Remember this, European neighborhood policy. This is going to give them legitimacy to run into these countries and occupy and hold. And as I was explained to me, if they do get these areas up and running and they can use the primary water sources from Libya, this grain growing area will exceed all of North America in terms of tonnage coming out. They will produce more grain than the United States and Canada combined in this area because the growing conditions are much better for grains on a faster return out. They're actually going to get more grain than entire North America produces out of this area here. So if we go offline and China goes offline and many areas start to decline, they're looking at this area here, parts of the Middle East and over into Iran and Pakistan, to grow the new food to feed our cultures and our world. But who's going to get that food? That's my question, my ultimate question. I'm almost out of time. I got 5 minutes. I'm going to try to wrap up. The planetary geometry here at 79 AD matches almost within a degree or so of the 2024 alignments. Now you got all the forged gas giants out here in a pair, and it's parallel pairs, and then the Earth sandwich right in the middle. So I call it like a magnetic Earth sandwich. But again, we see the parallel pairs exactly to the degree with the parallel with the Earth sandwich magnetically right in between that. That is a 2,000-year cycle. And we keep coming back to the rainfalls on a 2,000-year cycle. So what's going on with the planetary geometry and the rainfalls are matching on multi-millennial cycles? There's too much coincidence going on for it to be just a random thing. And this is the kind of points I put together. The North American snowfall, I mean, look, it's so far above the standard deviations. It's got to have its own new ranges built in there. That's from 2017-18. Look how far out of the range it is above the normal. 2018-19, it happened again, but a little bit earlier in the season. Notice where the peak is compared to here. It's pushed back a month or two. But they got to have the ready-made excuse that it's evaporating oceans. Greenland ice. We come here, 2015-16. The blue line is well above the baseline average for the 30-year averages from 1990 to 2013, way above the average. They tried to explain it. Again, it's evaporating oceans. What happened again in 2016-17, but look at the, wow, so far above, shockingly, astonishingly above. And then this year, 2017-18, totally above again. Now, those pages are gone. They don't exist on the net anymore. They erase that information, so you're not able to access it. Offline. So you have to go to Polar Portal in the back door to find this info. And they don't show you those charts anymore. They're starting to present the information like this. So when we look at, the 2012-13 melt season, we got way down in the incredible. Look how low the melt got. I mean, way down at what? minus 16 gigatons a day coming down. Look how low the melt was in 2013. When we come back here, that was a 2017-18 melt season. We stay above pretty much a 30-year average on melt. But here, look how low it was below in 2012-13. And they're still trying to tell you it's gaining ice up there. It makes no sense. And again, the reason I try to explain the problem is we have the biggest opportunity in human history in front of us. There's going to be more opportunity to find your niche, provide value, grow your businesses, grow whatever you'd like to grow during this time, because more people are going to need more services, goods, and whatever. Consulting could be a million things in between the change from here to there, because there's going to be more change than has occurred in the last few thousand years with the most people on the planet there's ever been. So this is the hugest opportunity in human history. So please don't look at it as, oh, we're going to die and we're all going to starve to death and fight to the death by knives to get food. It's not going to be like that. If you know the changes, you're going to be able to map them out and find your niche to provide the most value for people during these changes. And again, this is kind of what our crops are going to be looking like in the next few years. This is what our crops are going to be like in the next few. This is what we're going to be harvesting in like October, this kind of snow, when our crops are still in the fields. Now, we know where the changes were before. Obviously, you've seen this map. Now, what the kind of research I do is I even look down to like Bohemia. This is in central Germany. And then you can see the wheat, the barley, the oats, the rye, and the grand sum minimums here. And you can see which ones decline on which timelines. So you can start to get an idea of which grains will be most affected in which regions. And you start pinpointing dots. So you got this in central France. You got it in central Germany. You got it in the Czech Republic. You got it in Russia. So you can start to map out where the losses are. And if you do any options trading, you can kind of see where the main crops are in the countries and then go long or short depending on delivery calls for something out in 2020, whatever. So I focus on the wine production in France, Germany, and Austria. Again, this was 2017, and I was predicting massive losses in here, and that's happening right now. Again, 2017, these are the calls that I called Alberta, the central grow zones, which we got the massive floods and delayed planting, and then right up here in the Great Lakes. And Newfoundland up here is offline already, pretty much. Australia, these are the main wheat growing belts. And somebody sent me an email today when I checked. This is the first time Australia is turning into an importer because they've lost so much grain production. And Kevin Long and I had a great interview, and he talked about this area here. They're expecting 7 more years of drought down here. So the rest of this is going offline. And West Australia this year has experienced extreme losses due to cold and excessive winds and Antarctic storms that are out of season. We saw this in China, so you can expect the Chinese dynasties to go. Now we've got 2 choices. I'll wrap up right here. We got 2 choices. We can move our grow belts south, which we're going to have to do. But each 1 degree Celsius temperature drop means 140 miles push south. They're expecting a 3C drop. So we're going to have to move our agriculture almost 400 miles south of where it presently is. I'm a fan of using hemp for that. We can get protein out of it. And it grows a lot of bands and zones that are hardy for other plants. So that's about all the time I have, except I'm doing some of my own grow stuff here. I'm working on a magnetic motor to be able to power the devices independently off grid. And then I want to couple that with Brad Buttrick's new all-in-one LED grow spectrum light, and then put it out as a kit where you got the magnetic motor, you got the new efficient grow lights, and then you got vertical tubes indoors. That's what I'm working on. And it'll all be for free. I'm just going to give away the designs. But anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you very much. Come out here and give me 1 second. Let me turn off let me hibernate my computer, and I'll be out of here.